Well, glory be and mercy me. We've done it yet again, I think. Just waiting. Connecting. We connected. We've done it. Everything is going absolutely according to plan. No hiccups. Everything's totally fine. I literally, part of the artistic process is just being prepared for when the spirit comes and settles in. And literally 10 minutes before this happened, that happened. And so I recorded the basics. I'm still working on the chording. Because what happens is that the spirit comes and lands on you with the song in hand, and you're like, okay, I'm going to scrabble to try and figure that out before the spirit leaves. But I got shit to do. So hopefully what I've recorded and what I've got ready to go is sort of set it up. It seems like it's going to be more of a happy-go-lucky tune. That's how it feels. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But that's life for you, isn't it? That the opportunities arise when you're least prepared to get them. Let's play. I like this one so much. I gotta tell you. Whenever I play this one, it carries with it a silly vibe. Everybody around me gets kind of silly about it, and everybody's like, oh, what a silly. But in terms of the lyrical content, and in terms of what the song is about, it's actually a really powerful piece, actually, that comes from our youth. And considering what has happened with Britney Spears, and considering who she is as a figure, and her life story, and everything we know about her, and the position that she was in when this song was sung, it's actually a really interesting, kind of harrowing piece in a way, right? That's what I like about it, is that it's all presented to us if it's T, but it's actually got this real dark underbelly, right? When you consider that this was coming out of the mouth of a 15-year-old girl who was literally enslaved by her family and just thrust in front of us and just being this is what you want, buy this, and we did, and we fucking did. It's dark. And so I love to play this tune because everybody always gets hoo about it. Hey Major, how you doing, bud? I see you've changed your icon. Very good. Getting more militant, I see. Good for you, sir. Good for you. Baby, I shouldn't have let you go. Now you're out of sight and oh pretty baby. Uh-oh, I'm fucking all the lyrics up. Uh-oh. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Show me how you want it to be. Tell me, babe, I need to know now what you got. My loneliness is killing me. I must confess I still believe. When I'm not with you I lose my mind. Give me a sign. Hit me baby one more time. Oh pretty baby, the reason I breathe is you. Girl, you got me flying. Oh baby, there's nothing Man, that's such a cool fucking rad song. That's such a fucking cool rad song. What are we going on here? Drips? How you doing, bud? I've never seen you in here, but hopefully you're here to participate. Cortex Zero checked out your channel on a stream the other day. Cool. Good luck to him. I think I've taken a look at his stuff. He's a bit more on the conspiratorial side than I am, but I respect that. I dipped in. I had my period of time in like deep conspiracy territory, right? And 'tis the age of deep conspiracy, right? I don't mind that at all. It's kind of fun sometimes, actually. Me too. It's an informative channel. Yeah. Nanya, good to see you. Canada should be an American colony. Vancouver should be a huge plantation. Probably not, Drips. Probably not. Like, I mean, I understand the impetus to imperialism, but please don't bring that in here. Thanks. I tried getting into guitar, but I can't develop a sense of rhythm. Yeah, it's something I take for granted. I've taught people guitar before. I've tried to teach people, and some people have rhythm and some people don't, you know? Like, and I've literally had to take people and be like, okay, like, you got to take a pen and, like, literally, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And, like, I remember when I was a kid doing that. Right? And it's just something you kind of take for granted as an adult. Like, everybody has rhythm. It's like not true at all. There are metronomes, right? Like the thing that go tick, 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 tick. And there's a reason for that, right? You because until it's instilled inside of you, you don't necessarily have it. But you do have rhythms, right? You do have things like a beat inside of your heart, right? Boom, 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 right? That's a fake Drips. Someone impersonated him on Cortex Drip. What is going on? There's always drama. You know, what's funny is that Cortex also plays guitar, but I have to say that you're much... Oh, that's kind of you to say. I don't care to compare myself. Everybody brings their own thing. Everybody's bringing their own thing. It's all... We're a choir. We're a choir, and everybody's coming up, right? So, everybody's bringing their own energy and their own thing to it. Was this written by Comrade Britt? I don't know if it was written by her, but definitely Freebird. I actually do, bud. Like, you keep saying it because I'm as free as a bird now. All right, I'm going to look into that. I love you too, Alex. Good to see you, bud. I've been practicing my timing while practicing the shamisen. What's a shamisen? What's a shamisen? What's a shamisen? Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, one of these. Okay, cool. Hey, Hugo, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Okay. We got a good amount of people in here. Let's move right into the next phase of this. Today's number is starring the illustrious and great David Lynch. Everybody, you got to pick a number between 1 and 10. If you've never done this before, you got to just pick a number between 1 and 10.
Here we go for today's number. It's December 2.
Go with a 4.
2021.
Go with a 4. We got a 9. We got an 8.
10 balls.
We got a 2. Hey, Rob, how you doing, bud?
Each ball has
7
a
from
number.
Harry. Good to see you, Harry. Got a good spread here. You go with a 6. Major with a 6. Another 4.
Swirl
the numbers. Absolutely my favorite part. This is a good array. We've been threading the needle, man.
Pick a number.
Here we go. We're going to hit it this time.
Today's number is...
That's a lot of 4s.
2.
Rob! Oh, thank goodness. Rob picking it up. Getting the mystical, magical energy. Rob McBean carrying it with you. The David Lynchian energy. May you be blessed. May the blessings of David Lynch fall upon thee. Go watch some Blue Velvet. Right? Watch some Blue Velvet. Go watch some... the original Dune, if you really want to see something, right? Da 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 da. Sure, but I'll have you on tomorrow. 8 o'clock, okay? All right. Let's move on to the next section, which I like to call Throwing Stones. Justin Trudeau has really let us have it. Let's face it, the best way to grow the economy and in turn make your life more affordable is by finishing the fight against COVID-19. And the best way to do that is by getting the job done on vaccines. So that's what we're going to do. And everyone has a role to play. We are going to reply. Good work withholding vaccines from poor nations for corporate billionaires. That'll get the job done. Got a good one here. What's happening with stupid? Oh yeah. Jeff Stupid Bezos, right? Amazon's new factory towns will lift up working class. Come on, if anybody wants to throw stones at anybody, now's your chance. Jeff Bezos. Throw stones at Jeff Bezos. Do you really think we're stupid enough to listen to the Washington Post? Really? Washington Post? Washington Post doesn't have its own thing? Sure it does. Whatever, I don't care. To the Washington Post? Or are you that stupid? Jeff Bezos is a very stupid person, honestly. Like, anytime I listen to him talk, anytime I listen to him to do anything. Let's throw a stone Elon. Let's go at Elon. Nobody's participating? Nobody has anything snide to say? Here we go. Elon Musk. Let's see. Daddy not proud. You're not getting to space, bro. Sure, that's weak, but whatever. I don't care. Wouldn't people... Oh, yeah. You know what I gotta do? Ford. I'm gonna show a clip later on Ford Nation. You looked like a 5-year-old with his hand caught in the cookie jar in the house today, bud. Like, yikes. Wouldn't people having more money in their pocket help the economy more and make life more affordable? You would think. You would think that if you wanted to actually help people and make things more affordable for people, you would begin by giving them money. You would think. Justin Trudeau has been strangely silent on the issue of the Tigrayan genocide. I wonder if it has anything to do with Canadian mining companies have minds of the reason. Yeah. Trudeau is just an imperialist puppet, right? He just does what the U.S. says, and he's not going to stand up and say anything about the... Are you kidding me? This guy puts Juan Guaido in front of you and like, look, here's the real leader of Venezuela. Yeah, the actual leader of Venezuela, Juan Guaido, right? Like, no, these guys are just like pro-imperialist puppets. They don't give a shit. Like, we are in favor of the Palestinian genocide. We sell weapons to the Saudi Arabians so that they can enact the Yemeni genocide. Like, we don't give a fuck. We're literally kicking in the doors of First Nations people on our own land. Like, we don't give a fuck. Like, so what? Like, even if we didn't have vested interests in that in the Tigrayan genocide, we still wouldn't talk about it. We don't care. We don't care. Like, we're the only time our government will stand up and say something about genocide is if it certainly doesn't exist, and if it's explicitly for the benefit of the Western imperial nations, right? See the Uyghur genocide, right, or the Holodomor. This is crazy. This story here, dude. This story right here is nuts. And it's nuts because I didn't really know about it until today. I'm like, how did I miss this? So in November 2nd, right, a town, a little town, 15,000 people, right here, right, Oroville, California, it declared itself a republic. And it declared that it is not going to take seriously any demands on them from the state or the federal government. It is a town that is literally declaring its independence. Like, literally, that's actually what it's doing. And it's unclear as to whether or not the people who are doing it are actually aware that that is, in fact, what they are doing. But that is, in fact, what they are doing. That they are outright explicitly saying, if the state or the federal government tells us to do something, we are going to not pay attention to them at all. Like, this thus begins the balkanization project, right? Thus begins the balkanization of the United States of America. And the response back to it is that Pentagon blames Biden, Newsom, for U.S. inaction in breakaway republic crisis. As the escalating crisis over the constitutional republic city of Oroville enters its second month, this began in November 2nd. U.S. military leaders have refused to rule out an invasion, telling Motherboard that civilian leaders are responsible for inaction to date. For their part, those leaders have articulated no plans to protect both the territorial integrity and the people of their once proud nation, but have also pointedly refused to deny that military force remains an option. While reporting by local news media traces the roots of the crisis to the effects of climate change, as well as pre-existing sectarian tensions between residents of the Oroville enclave and those of the surrounding Northern California region, the spark that lit the flame came when local leaders declared their community of 15,000 a republic on November 2nd. Records show that at a council meeting, after considering such subjects as whether a lease a photocopy machine for $219 a month and a proposal from a firm called D.H. Slater & Sons for the demolition and remodeling of part of a local public safety building, the leaders adopted a resolution declaring Oroville a constitutional republic city. The document said that Oroville would no longer recognize the authority of the executives of the state of California and the U.S. federal government. Here it is. A resolution of the Oroville City Council declaring the city of Oroville to be a constitutional republic city. Whereas, the Constitution of the United States protects our rights endowed by our Creator, as well as guarantees liberties to American citizens, including the establishment of justice, the promotion of the welfare, general welfare, and securing the blessings of liberty. And whereas, the Constitution espouses many principles upon which the United States is founded, namely the separation of powers, individual rights, and the rule of law. And whereas the Constitution of the State of California provides that all people are by nature free and independent and have inalienable rights, including enjoying and defending life and liberty, acquiring, possessing, and protecting property, which, incidentally, the Constitution never actually, but that's fine, and pursuing and obtaining safety, happiness, and privacy. And whereas John Adams, the second president of the United States, wrote, the very definition of a republic is an empire of laws and not men. That as a republic is the best of governments, so that particular arrangement of the powers of society, or in other words, that form of government, which is best control. Wow, this is just like a word salad of nonsense that is okay. Endowed by your creator. You mean your parents? Well, no. There is anyway, it doesn't matter. I won't get too deep into that. I can get really deep into the theological stuff if you want, Harry. If you've never been here for when I go off the rails into theological territory, it's a great time. It's one of my favorite subjects. Be careful, okay? Because it can railroad the whole thing. Confusingly, the leaders of this land of contradictions, who have said they're motivated by California Governor Gavin Newsom's mandate that school children be vaccinated against COVID-19, have asserted that they are not seceding from either the state of California or the United States, but simply refusing to recognize their legal and political authority. Oh, man. So there's a weird duality. They're claiming that they don't want to secede, and yet they're refusing to recognize the legal and political authority. That's a secession, right? That's a secession. If you're refusing to recognize their authority, you're seceding. That's what it is. Citizens applauded as the resolution was brought up for consideration, while one leader said that it was not meant to begin a secession effort. He also said that he had not expended any time to research whether that's possible. So this to me looks like just like a group of straight up like anti-mask, anti-vax types who are just like taking over the halls of power. In a stirring speech, a U.S. loyalist and citizen of Oroville suggested that declaring the city a constitutional republic was a move designed to be anti-decent living because it would allow the republic to ignore anti-discrimination laws and mask mandates. He was, though, laughed at by his fellow citizens. God has created our immune system, the most genuine and genius to fight these kinds of things off, and our whole family got it, said one citizen. We are now 30% stronger from any kind of sickness. Anybody should be able to make their own choice. Like, no. That's what we want to be doing. Like, this is absurdism, right? Like, this is absurdism. Even the cameraman filming the meeting was moved to speak in favor of the separatist movement, leaving his post from behind the camera to suggest that the U.S. should look at Star Wars. They gave emergency powers to Chancellor Palpatine, and look what happened. I think it's time for us to draw a line in the sand and say enough is enough, said separatist leader Scott Thompson, who serves on Oroville's leadership council via vice mayor. Recently, Thompson has struck a more conciliatory note. The desire here is dialogue, he claimed. With whom peace talks would be carried out isn't clear, though. The U.S. State Department refused to answer specific questions from Motherboard, declining to say whether the U.S. government will be recognizing the Republic, and why not, if not, whether it has anything to say about this threat to the integrity of the 245-year-old political union, what it has to say to Americans who fear they may find their communities annexed by violent Oroville separatists, and whether diplomats are working the problem or simply washing it down the fancy cheeses with wine at dinner parties where people speak foreign languages. This is just a comedy skit. Yeah, I mean, but it's like a comedy skit with like absolutely like high level stakes, right? Like the consequences of it can't be higher. The stakes can't be higher, right? Yeah, cue the March of the Imperialist Stormtroopers. Palpatine, how about Hitler? Yeah. While the diplomatic situation is murky, it's clear that for the U.S. government, all options remain on the table. Asked whether it had been tasked with planning an invasion of Oroville and whether it believes it has the legal authority to wage war, a spokesperson for the Department of Defense firmly declined to say that it is not readying the full might of its trillion-dollar war machine, which has nearly 1.5 million fighting men and women under arms as well as powerful nuclear arsenal. I refer you to the White House on this. Look, the reality of this situation is they don't need to do any of that, okay? That, like, these people have essentially cut themselves off, right? They've essentially cut themselves off from the rest of the United States. The United States doesn't need to move a military in, right? The United States apparatus, the military-industrial complex and all of this, have become experts at sanction and siege warfare, right? They have become experts at creating situations to make these sorts of things deeply uncomfortable for citizens, right? So forget about this idea. So they've got like a fishing hatchery here, right? So forget about this idea that they're going to sell that to the neighboring, like to Durham, right? Oh, you want to like declare your independence but still sell your fish to like Gridley and Princeton and Durham and like the surrounding neighborhood? No, right? In the United States, they're going to erect a checkpoint right here, right? Checkpoint right here. They're going to erect a checkpoint right here, right? Any road on the way out, right? You think kids from this jurisdiction are just going to keep going to this Palomora Middle School? No. Like, none of that's going to happen, right? The U.S. is going to create checkpoints, right, all around this place. It's going to strangle them, right? Exactly. Just shut down their infrastructure, like water, internet, roads, electricity, right? Like, you want to be your own independent nation? Okay, you are, right? Shut off the lever. Like, and given how tepid, like, this is pretty tepid, right? Like, leadership is like, this isn't seceding. We're not seceding, are we? This isn't a secession, is it? Right? Like, they don't actually understand. Like, of course they don't. They're anti-maskers, right? They don't understand what's at stake here. They don't really know what they're doing, right? And I don't think they know. I don't think they know how serious this can get for them. You know, I think that they have just sort of like kicked over the can, frustrated because of the mask mandates and all this. But like, the United States doesn't need to like go to war. It's a bit silly to me that this article is constantly bringing up like the specter of war, right? Like, they don't need to do that. They literally can just like, oh, you're your own independent nation. Okay, great. So that means that we need to have checkpoints. So they'll erect checkpoints, right? They'll just cut off travel from the municipal airport, right? No, you don't get to fly in American airspace. You're no longer America. You seceded. You're Orville now, or Oroville, or whatever. Yeah, and exactly, Chris. This is exactly right. They won't even sanction it. They'll just cut it off economically until Oroville comes back screaming. Yep. I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. Like, it would be different if the citizens were like, we're seceding. This is bullshit. The United States is taking advantage of us. We can go it alone. We're prepared to go it alone, right? Like, if that's the way that they were talking, I would be a little bit more, interesting. But that's not the way they're talking. I genuinely think they don't know what they've done, right? Yeah, I argue that sanctions is warfare. No, I do as well, like, for sure. Like, sanctions is a form of warfare. Absolutely. But that's not how the general public sees it. The general public seems to think that, like, yeah, sanctions, that's totally fine, right? Like, siege warfare, right, is a form of warfare, but the populace is just like, what? You're just surrounding them. What? You're not going in and shooting anybody, right? You're going, what? It's not like they're an invasion or a war or anything. You're just strangling them to death. Like, you're just strangling them, right? So, and the media doesn't report on it that way either, right? Like, so while we can, between the two of us, we can agree that sanctions are warfare, that's not the broader narrative. Yeah, sanctions only hurt civilians, not the leaders. Yeah. Well, and actually, there is lots of credible evidence to show that sanctions empower leadership, that sanctions actually make leadership stronger, right? The case that I'll bring up is Venezuela, that the sanctions that came in against Venezuela only emboldened the Chavistas and only increased the amount of people who were going into the military, because they saw, like, here is this form of warfare coming at us from a foreign power. We have to I'm great at impressions, dude. I have all kinds of characters that come out. They're wonderful. But like, so the Maduro has only been strengthened from the regimes and from the sanctions rather. And sanctions seem to have that effect. They're counterintuitive. They don't actually work. They're literally just a form of torture. That's all it is. They're just a form of torture, and it doesn't work. Just like the torture regime under George W. Bush was a failure, that it didn't work, that it didn't actually get any information, it didn't actually solve any problems, and it actually created a whole lot of problems, right? And it's the same thing with sanctions, right? If you torture a nation, it emboldens the leadership, it empowers the leadership. And even if the leadership is like this crazy, corrupt, like fascist kind of thing, like the people would rather have the guy they know than the fucking people who are like getting them from outside, right? Yeah, I would say that Daddy Vladdy and his main appeal is that he's not pro-NATO and is preventing NATO intervention. I don't think I understand anything you just said there, bud. You're like, who's Daddy Vladdy? All right, so We'll keep an eye on this as it unfolds. If I was a betting man, I would say very simply that very light economic pressure is going to have them flip the other way, right? That like it's not going to be that difficult to get them to flip back over, because like I just don't think they're prepared for what's happening. Hey, pissed off, how you doing today, bud? Good to see you. Good to see you. Of course, while Justin Trudeau walking around saying, we need to focus on vaccines even though we're withholding it from poor nations and all of this kind of stuff, right? Oh, I see what you're saying, bud. Yeah, like, you're right about that. Like, people are looking at Vladimir Putin as, like, he's holding off NATO, right? Like, and his withdrawal from the G7, used to be the G8, was actually seen as, like, a pretty big power move, right? That people are like, yeah, fuck these guys. I think the main goal is for them to crush countries economically and be damned with the people. It's about forcing the leaders to accept neoliberal free market policies. Here's the trouble, right? Here's the trouble, is that if the United States, right? If the United States sanctions all of South America, as they have, right? If they sanction the Middle East, if they sanction Africa, right? If they sanction China, well, who's the isolated one? Really? Like, if the United States sanctions all these guys and all these guys go, oh, we'll just start trading with each other, which is exactly what they're doing with China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is brilliant. Like, and once China actually gets the rail from Afghanistan to Iran, and then Iran into Ankara and into Europe, and then once the Americans leave Iraq, and they connect it from Tehran to Baghdad, and then Baghdad to this new city, Neom, that Saudi Arabia is building, and then into Africa. Like, what the fuck are these Americans going to do? Their whole strategy of sanctions is a failure from the get, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Like, well, and Russia is pretty closely tied to China, which is the new rising superpower, right? And it's rising for very clear reasons. They're building, right? They're building. That the United States is steadily becoming like the laughing stock of the world, right? They can't even get like an infrastructure bill passed that's meaningful whatsoever. Like this 7 trillion, no sorry, 5 trillion, no sorry, 3 trillion, no sorry, 1 trillion, no sorry, 5 billion, like 500 billion infrastructure bill, which is then all of that money is going to go like into the pockets of developers, like, and none of that's actually going to build anything. It might be used to sort of retrofit like a couple of things, but like it's a total embarrassment. And in the meantime, China is literally building a railway system to connect the entire rest of the world, like. And eventually they're going to get connected, like they're going to get ports into like Sierra Leone or Guinea. And those ports are going to connect directly over into like Fortaleza or Natal, right? Or over here into Caracas in Venezuela, right? And they're just literally going to go from like, so they're going to shit stuff out, right, of China, right, through the manufacturing, and they're going to put it on a rail, and it's going to go chugga 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 click, and then they're going to have a boat that just goes doot doot, right, nice and easy, doot doot, nice and easy, right. And this alleyway here, right, between the North Atlantic and the South Atlantic Ocean is going to become like crucial trading territory. And the Americans are going to do everything they can to make sure that this stops, right? But while South America is simultaneously like swinging to the left, like with many of these countries, Chile being like the big one, being like neoliberal dies here. Neoliberal economics dies here. It is over. We are no longer participating in this. Like, America is in like a massive, 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 massive crisis. It has bitten off more than it can chew. It has been walking around like wagging its dick like it's like the king shit on Turd Mountain. But all it's doing is building this polluting military that they're going to have to shelf, right? Like, they can't keep doing it. They can't keep operating this way. I don't see how people could think China is better than America on a basis of anything except foreign policy. I mean, China literally has sweatshops with suicide nets. Well, okay, Chris, I'm going to change your perspective on this. I'm gonna change your perspective a little bit. Okay, so China had the difference. Like we have a Western perspective of China. That's what it is. We have this idea that like we had unions and we had all this kind of stuff. China had none of that, right? China literally was a country that was the poorest country in the world, right? Like China was the poorest country, not in the world, in Asia. The poorest country in Asia. They had just come out of 100 years of humiliation. Like literally a period of time that they call 100 years of humiliation. A grinding poverty that we simply do not understand as Westerners. We do not know what poverty looks like compared to what was going on in China. We don't have the lived experience. We don't know what we're talking about when we're talking about poverty. Like, we're over here complaining like, I'm poor in my heated home with my refrigerator, right? And my computer, right? Like, oh, the poor. And like, what we're complaining about is like a poverty of time, that our time is being taken from us. China's poverty was literally like, I have a handful of rice and I live in a grass hut. Like literally like trying to grow rice out of like a dust farm. Like for real. Like poverty. And from there, the Communist Party comes out. They have an imperialist war, right? And then the Communist Party is attempting to lift its own citizens out of the poverty. And the way they've chosen to do this, right, or one of the ways they've chosen to do this, was to open up China to foreign investment. And what that means is that you take your citizens and you put them to work in these factories. And we as Westerners are like, slave labor and take, oh my God, and it's so horrible, they should have a union and all that kind of stuff. The Chinese people don't view it that way. They view it as if it was a war effort, right? That as if they were going to war. They knew that what they were doing was shitty. They knew that what they were doing was horrible. They understood it. There was no illusions. Nobody was sitting there being like, oh my God, the government is, oh my, like, it literally is like, do this or sit in your dust field. And everybody all at once comes together in this war effort in order to lift the entire nation up and move forward as a people. Like but because we here in the West are not really capable of understanding that, we don't live in a culture that does that. We don't live in a culture that we collectively come together and push forward in a war effort in order to sacrifice ourselves to improve the nation and thereby improve the lot for our next civilization. We literally can't understand it. So we only put it in capitalist terms, which is exploitation. We only understand things in terms of exploitation. And so when we see a country putting its own citizens through tough times in order to improve their situation, we assume it's exploitation. That's what's going on. South China Morning Post is unbiased Chinese news publication. I would suggest that. Yeah. I like Al Jazeera. I like the Gray Zone a lot. Gray Zone does a lot of very specific, like, CIA-related reporting that I really like. Honestly, dude, like, every source that exists is good. But you have to understand their biases. You have to understand their biases, right? Like, when you are reading the Globe and Mail here in Toronto, here in Canada, you have to understand that you're reading a newspaper that's owned by the wealthiest man in Canada, right? That David Thompson, the wealthiest man in Canada, owns the Globe and Mail and Post Media. And so when you read those publications, if you understand that bias, you can get a lot of good information from it. And it's the same story for like the National Post, right? The National Post is a corporate newspaper written by, started by Conrad Black, like literal corporate criminal Conrad Black. Something like the Washington Post. Like, the Washington Post is a fine source of news as long as you understand it's owned by Jeff Bezos, right? So there's no such thing as like a bad source of news. You really just need to understand who owns it and understand why they want you to know this piece of information. Like, The Guardian is great, even though like it has its own biases, right? Like the CBC is good, even though it's state run, so everything's gonna like go through like a very liberal party lens at this point. Yeah, I mean the Narwhal I really like, the Beaverton. The Beaverton's great, and but like for foreign politics, I rather like Al Jazeera a lot. Like Al Jazeera, like when there's something on, like when the last Israeli-Palestinian conflict was going on, it was Al Jazeera that was really where I was. Like they were the people who were reporting on it. Like boom, 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 boom. So it's all good, but you just gotta you can't just take it at face value. You can't just read it and be like, this is unequivocally the truth. Like, no. It's what this guy says. My city of Edmonton has higher lead levels than Flint, Michigan. I think it's safe to say that I'm experiencing some of the poverty that has been experienced in China. I do have a cell phone, but like you're saying, being in the West is kind of commonplace. But does a cell phone provide you security and a hopeful future? No. I feel like a lot of things that we take for granted in the West, like technology, is not a metric of wealth, but more enslavement. We have mistaken technology for moral truth. That we believe that we are morally righteous because we have gadgets. Like that's really what we've done. And instead of saying like, hey, like you can be a high-tech technology that is like this dingy shithole, like you definitely can do that. Like, that's what the whole cyberpunk thing is about. Yeah, South Front. Why am I blanking on South Front? Let's look it up. Let's look it up. South Front News. South Front News. South Front News. South Front News. Stormy winter comes to Syria. Oh, yeah. But like, who owns this? That's my big question, right? That's always my question. South Front, who owns it? And usually, Wikipedia is usually pretty good for this, honestly. Like, in terms of like, who owns things, the public Anatolia umbrella organization created and maintained by a team of experts, yabba yabba, Four Corners, South Front, yep, yeah. Who owns it? Like, yeah, they're not. This is where I get really skeptical. I get skeptical of news organizations that don't tell you who owns it. Like, most organizations, most credible organizations are very upfront about this, right? South Front. Russia hiding behind being Russian. A Russian propaganda website. Oh, yeah, okay. Pseudo-sci mild, conspiracy level strong. Okay, that's fine. Russian propaganda. Okay. But, like, if you understand that it's Russian propaganda, then fine. That's my position on most news, right? Like, if you understand who owns it, if you understand, Russian propaganda, here you go. Like, if you understand that it's Russian propaganda, take a look at it, see what the Russians are saying, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that, right? And especially because, like, sometimes people, like, these sites can spit out, like, ultimately what you're looking for is source documents. That's what you're looking for, okay? Like, it doesn't matter what people are saying about things, okay? Like, you are looking for a document like thinking through, like, you're looking through this. Like, you're looking for documents like this, okay? Here's a document that comes out of the Rand Corporation, which is a wing of the Pentagon, right? Called War with China, Thinking Through the Unthinkable. This is a document that comes out of the Pentagon. It's publicly available, as you can see, right? And they go through the rationale and the logic and the possibility of going to war with China. This comes out in 2016. Like, this is what you are looking for. Like, anybody can say anything they like, right? And as long as you know who they are and you know where their perspective is and you know what they're coming from, right? Well, what's the source document? Any article I read, what's the source document? What's the source, right? Because you can start to throw shit out like right away. Like, you click on an article and you're reading it and you're just like, oh, okay, I'm reading. Oh, it's the source is Radio Free Asia. Garbage bin. Radio Free Asia is a CIA institution, right? Like, CIA funded, right? And anything that comes from the CIA, like if it's, source CIA, you basically can bin it. Like, you don't, like, sure, the CIA said that, but, like, since when has the CIA been a credible source of information, right? I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I don't know that much about the Tigray genocide. I really don't. This seems to have come up. But I mean, I do know that the U.S. State Department has been threatening Ethiopia for quite some time. So I'm not going to be too surprised to find out that those two events, like, that's all kind of tied in with one another. I mean, you could always just read Mao. Yeah, there's always that. There's always just that. A main man, Jimmy, Lie of China. Are you Jonathan on Reddit? I am, sir. I am. I am Jonathan on Reddit. That's such an old name. That's such an old name. I wish I could change it. I'd change it to the Canadian Commie if I could. But I haven't even looked into it, honestly. But yes, I am Jonathan on Reddit, and I mean, I post my videos directly to that, so. They did do a video. I haven't taken the time to actually see it, so I think I'll have a listen to their stuff. But yes, to wrap up this section, any source is a good source, right? As long as you understand who they are and what their perspective is, and have the suitable amount of skeptical, right? Like, oh, this is Russian propaganda. Like, this is what the Russians think. Oh, this is the CIA. This is what the United States, like, State Department thinks. This is what this thinks. This is what this thinks. But really what you're looking for is source documents. Just something that's not commentary, not an editorial, right? Not even really a perspective. Like, literally, like, the United States government planning a war with China. This is what they think. Here it is. Right? Here it is. This is where you can plant your feet fairly firmly. And honestly, this document is insane. This document's insane. Like, you want to see a document that shows you how insane the United States has become? It's this. Like, they literally assume that China will not use nuclear bombs while they wipe out 30%. They're literally trading, like, military, like, people's lives for economic gains. It's brutal. This is a brutal document. Yeah, propaganda is very revealing if you recognize it as such. Yeah, and also, like, it's so, for example, that one we just looked up, the South Front, right? Like, most credible news organizations will be very upfront with who owns them, right? It's quite easy to find out who owns them. If you find that you're having to dig around, if you find that you're having to, like, dig around and find, like, ancillary sources and sort of base on rumors of who owns things, maybe cut that out of your diet. Like, maybe just get rid of that. Because if they're trying to obfuscate who even owns the thing, yeah, what else are they obfuscating, right? What else are they obfuscating? But, like, if like, for example, like, Toronto Star is a great example, right? Toronto Star was recently bought by Doug Ford supporters, the Conservative Party here in Canada. And they also donate money to the PPC. And they're just being open about it. And so it's like, oh, okay. Like, that's... Now we know, right? Now we know. I really hate fascism. Yeah, a good position to take. Words can't even describe it. I was born into the late 90s. I will never forget when my family and I hid in the basement of our house when Serbian fascists went door to door, blowing people's houses up and skinning people alive because they thought they would be Muslim. I hate the country in which I live, not only because the same fascist who slaughtered thousands of Muslims roam the streets without any guilt, but because the government itself is the same government that committed those crimes. Woo. Woo. Man, Hugo, thank you for sharing that. That's heavy shit, dude. That's heavy shit. Like, I find that a lot of Western commentators, right, like they aren't getting, like, because we're detached, and we are detached. Like, I live in Canada, right? We're detached. We forget the humanity of all of this, and that there is like a human connection. So, thank you for sharing that, bud. That is crazy pants. That is crazy pants. And the idea that my country, Canada, likely holds blame on that. That sucks. That sucks an unbelievable amount. Hi, Kate. Brand new here, really trying to understand the opinions here. Oh, stick around, Kate. Ask questions. That's what I'm here for, right? I'm hanging my dick out there as the Canadian commie, so hope you're here to participate. Alex, do you think Wikipedia is a good source for info on the CPC? I mean, what's interesting about Wikipedia is that it's obviously been taken over by like the CIA. There's obviously like CIA spooks that operate throughout Wikipedia, but they're also not outright lying, if you understand me, right? Like, they use sources, they use these sorts of things, but they don't, but they take it from a very capitalist perspective. The assumption is that capitalism is good, and they use language that is largely accepted. So it's just accepted. It's just accepted that Stalin was a dictator, for example, right? That's just accepted. You can say that out loud and everybody goes, that's correct. Stalin was a dictator. You don't need a source on it, right? But he obviously was not. Like, even a cursory analysis of how the Communist Party structure was erected shows you like, did Stalin have a lot of power? Sure. Like, yeah, absolutely. But, like, he was elected by his peers who kept voting for him, right? Like, really strange, like, what kind of dictator keeps getting elected? Like, and he attempted to step down on 4 separate occasions. On 4 separate occasions, Stalin attempted to step down and his own people wouldn't let him do it. Like, but they're not going to really tell you about that, right? So Wikipedia, like all news sources, has its ups and downs. Like, once you accept that there's a lot of CIA involvement, then you can just like accept that and, you know, take the critical eye. And again, it's about source documentation. What do I find productive about communism? Excellent, excellent, excellent question, Kate. So I'll give you like the cleanest possible example that I can have, which is that when the Nazis invaded the Soviet Union, the deciding factor between why the Soviets won that war was because the communist productive capacity was higher than the Nazi capitalists, right? That the Nazis were capitalists and had their productive capability, and the productive capability of the communists overwhelmed the capitalists, and pushed them back. So literally, and that's true every single time capitalists and communists fight, by the way. Every single time capitalists and communists fight, the communists win. Like, I mean, you can't get much more evidence than this. And then who are the first people into space? Oh, it's the communists, right? Like, who are the first people who are making these like technological breakthroughs and doing all stuff, even in the modern era? You've got China, like making major breakthroughs in quantum computing, making major breakthroughs in military, making major breakthrough in stealth technology, right? Nice to see you too, Alex. Good to see you, bud. And power that's the thing, Kate. Power can corrupt anyone. That's exactly what happened to the Soviet Union, by the way. That when Stalin died, the corrupting power of neoliberal capitalism seeped in and took over. And so you're saying democracy is always a necessity? I don't think you can actually govern a complex nation without some form of democracy. Like, there's literally no such thing. There's literally no such thing as like a guy that just seizes power and then when you have complex nations the way that we do. It doesn't work. There's always some structure of democracy that exists. It's just that the communist parties that have existed, like for example China's governing system, well, it's not Western parliamentary democracy, right? It's not Western parliament. Like, they don't have a Congress and a Senate and a presidency and then the Supreme Court. Like, they don't have that structure. But that doesn't mean it's not democratic. It's just not our democratic. Right? Every way of governing is different, but voting by the people should always be there. Exactly, Kate. That's exactly right. And so like a place like China, for example, like nobody calls Xi Jinping a dictator. Nobody credible, right? And the reason is because it's obviously a democracy, right? North Korea is a democracy. People go and they vote, right? They go and they vote for their representative. And this is actually like crazily falsified. Like anybody who's standing around saying that National People's Congress, like you literally can just go to the National People's Congress Wikipedia source, right? Here you go. Here's the structure of it. Everybody goes and votes. There's 2,980 representatives. The red is the Communist Party. The other colors are the other different parties that exist within the structure. The gray, the largest group here, are independents, right? And it's from this structure then elects other structures, right? So this structure here, and then they also elect their leadership. Xi Jinping is elected through this process. So it's democratic. It's just not our system of democracy. And part of the goal of the Communist Party in China right now, and Xi Jinping was even elected on the platform of anti-corruption, because they're very concerned about corruption in their own ranks, right? They saw what happened in the Soviet Union. Like, they saw, and they know that can happen here. And when Deng opened up capital markets to China, everybody assumed that was going to be the thing. Like, that was the case. That, China's gone capitalist, it's over. Communism is over, right? That's what people assumed. They just kind of forgot that China actually has a plan, right? Unlike Westerners who are saying let chaos reign. And China actually has a plan, a 100-year plan, which you can go find. Okay, we agree on stuff. People always need a say. What would you hope to see in the U.S. system as far as socialism or communism? I mean, my position is actually that the U.S. system is too corrupted. I don't think it can be reformed, right? Like, I think that the U.S. system is not responsive to the needs of the public. It is not listening to the needs of the public. That the worship of money has corrupted the system too greatly. And that corruption is irreconcilable. And so what I actually do think needs to happen here in North America is that we erect a new structure that is outside of the structure that exists today, that we surround the halls of power. And I'm dead serious about this, by the way. Like, I actually do think that this is the only path forward for America. That the halls of power are surrounded, not invaded, surrounded, right? And that the people who are surrounding the halls of power erect a new constitution, erect a new set of laws, and that becomes the credible basis for the new society, and that the old constitution and the old governing structure simply withers away. Of course, it's a thin line. Of course. But it's been done before. Right? That's the thing that people need to understand. It's been done before. Like, what I am saying is not like utopian fairy fart shit. It's happened in the 30s. It's happened in the 60s. Right? The only time the American public have actually gotten something out of their government, the only time that Americans have ever gotten anything out of their government is when they surrounded the halls of power, like they did in the 30s and 40s and the 60s and 70s. Right? That's what happened. It's not utopian. It's not utopian. This is how people build new structures. They surround the old, dead, calcified, corrupted structures. They erect new institutions. And they declare these are the rules that we are moving forward with, and this old structure is dead. And you stop participating with it. You stop engaging. That's why every politician says, oh, just go out and vote. Because they know that it's your vote that gives the system credibility. But if the halls of power are surrounded by a people who are literally holding up a new constitution and saying this document matters and yours doesn't, and nobody participates in the old way, and you just ignore it, that's how you, and God help, then if you get international recognition, right? If you get international recognition, like, that's how these things actually go. And that's what's going to happen in America. Because the system of government that exists in America is essentially just WWE entertainment. Like, it's not actually there for the benefit of the people. It's there to enact an extraction process to turn its citizens into wage slaves, tax slaves that they can tax wealth out of, in order to fund a military, in order to oppress the rest of the world, and then ultimately itself. Like, that's the structure of what we live under now. And none of the people operating in the system are actually interested in even the most basic reformism. Even the people who are there saying that they are, like your AOCs and your Sanders and all this, they're just playing a character. They're just playing a part. They're just part of the WWE grift where they all come out, they shout and they holler, they do all that kind of stuff, and then they go back behind the curtain, shake each other's hands, and get paid by the same people. Both the US system and the China system put barriers between the people in power while allowing people to have a say. Both are limited democracies. I mean, the proof's in the pudding, Grinning. The proof's in the pudding. Like, the Chinese democracy does what the people want. And anytime like Harvard did this crazy poll, like a 20-year-old long poll of the Chinese people, and they saw that not only were the Chinese people happy with their government, that their happiness with the government improved over time. That people really are and in some places it's as high as 80% support for the governing party. Can we say the same? Can we say the same? Here in Canada and the United States? Like, I don't think so. And the difference between the systems is its responsiveness to the demands of the populace. That the populace is saying, we want X, and in China they get X. And in America they get fucked. Like, they don't get any of that shit. Yeah, hit like, share, subscribe. Thanks, propaganda. Hit like, share, subscribe. Give me money. Send $1 to my Patreon. I need to pay rent. If you're giving me $1, maybe think about giving me $2. What do you think about the U.S. military bases worldwide? I mean, the United States is an empire. It's in a classical sense, right? In a classical sense, it's an empire, and yeah, I mean, it's got just like the Roman Empire, it's got military bases all over the place. Just like the Roman Empire, it will collapse once the populace stops supporting it. And it's a little bit different now because the United States military has so much more technology at its fingertips. So less and less people need to be involved in the process, right? You can literally just have one guy with like a drone thing. And so what's becoming necessary from that point is like every missile they shoot is like money, right? That's production that we as people enact. And so truly what needs to begin happening is we need to cease participating in the system completely. Like completely. Like quit your job, go on strike, revolt, right? Sabotage your workplace. Like really. Like we have to grind the machine down. We have to. Because like I mean the number one polluter in the world right now is the United States military. And it's not even close. And the United States military is exempt from all international talks regarding pollution. Like in the midst of a climate catastrophe. We're literally like fighting each other to death. It's just brutal. John, where'd you learn all this stuff? Self-taught? Yeah, well, I mean, you listen to lectures, right? Listen, Chris Hedges, Noam Chomsky, Michael Parenti. What are some other names? What are some other names that I could just throw off the top of my head? Read the Bible, read Shakespeare. Keep reading. Always read. Always learn something. Every day learn something new. Don't believe what you're told by anybody. Source documents. Like, source documents. That last comment gets me in a lot of trouble with a lot of people. People really don't like that. Like, even allies don't like that. I get in trouble all the time. I feel China has more democracy than the USA, but that's like saying you're the smartest guy in the dumb class. I want more freedoms and rights for humanity. Well, and also, like, it pays to remember that the United States structure was not built to respond to the public, right? Read the Constitution, right? James Madison, the framer of the Constitution, is explicit, right? The goal of the American Constitution is to keep power within the wealth of the nation. Like, you just need to read the document, and you'll see that that's the case. And like, now, and we're seeing the outcome. We're seeing what happens if you do that, right? Keep power within the wealth of the nation. Well, here we are. And we as a people have gotten caught in, we worship money. Like, we worship money. Oh, Richard Wolff. You gotta consume Richard Wolff. If you're not eating Richard Wolff, you gotta eat Richard Wolff. He's for sure like absolutely core. Karl Marx, like Stalin wrote stuff, Trotsky wrote stuff, Mao, Deng, right? Like and also, like, I mean, Nietzsche, why am I blanking on that guy? Holy cow. Anton Chekhov, his plays are absolutely crucial. I mean, Chinese theater, Japanese theater. There's a lot. There's a lot. And what's great is that you can't miss, right? You can't really miss. Just read stuff, know who you're reading, know what their position is, and just and I think the number one thing that I have to say to people, never be a fundamentalist about it. Never, ever, ever read something from somebody and think to yourself, this is the God's gospel truth. Even if you're reading the Bible, you shouldn't do that. Like, I think this is an interesting topic. Put a Twitter thread in the live stream Discord channel if you want to breeze through it. My fascinating look into Chinese Democrat. Did you just say you put a... Let's take a look. Let's take a look. On Twitter, as Chinese, the most frequently asked question for me is, why don't you oppose the CPC? Why don't Chinese support Western-style democracy? Why do Chinese people support President Xi, who has no votes? Now I'm going to tell them why. Oh, this is going to be fun. Unlike so-called democratic countries, the Chinese people value experience more than votes or other abilities for government officials. From the Sui dynasty on 1400 years ago, officials were selected and promoted by examination, not by blood or birth. Well, and also the Chinese civilization is 4,000 years old. Like, we are this rinky-dinky little 250 years. Like, we've got nothing compared to what China has. China has this ancient tradition, these dynasties, They got a lot more going on than we got going on. In today's China, if you want to enter politics, you have to take a hard and competitive road. Whether you come from a grassroots family or political family, you have to go through every step. Only in this way can you reach the top of power, like President Xi. To get started, you have to own a college degree, at least for most Chinese government officials. You have to take the national service examination and be admitted. In 2019, 920,000 people took the exam. 537 were admitted, with the admission rate of 1.58%. And of course, I think it's fine to be skeptical of this system too. The ruling party in China is the CPC. In addition, there are 8 other parties. You have to join one of them. If your idea is to become the supreme leader of China, I suggest you join the CPC. You'll be one of the 90 million CPC members. They are all your competitors. Now you've become a grassroots official. Your administrative level is staff, while President Xi's administrative level is national level principal. There are 10 levels of gap between you and President Xi. Every level requires several years and multiple examinations. In China, organization department at all levels are responsible for the management of civil servants. Every civil servant has to take part in the grade assessment every year. The assessment is usually conducted by your colleagues, subordinates, and superiors by voting. The result of the assessment is related to your future. So it's like a constant checking in. There's this constant checking in, right? Like a constant discussion, a constant assessing, a constant back and forth, right? As you go up with this concern towards corruption, right? And of course, what Westerners will do when we're discussing this kind of system is they'll say well, when this thing gets corrupted, it's going to go crazy. It's yeah. And who is more aware of that than anybody else? The Chinese. If you work hard and are lucky enough, you will become the highest official in a district or country. As President Xi did in 1983, he became the highest official in Zhending County. You have to own the experience to manage hundreds of thousands or even millions of people. Yeah, what a crazy job, eh? That's crazy. The idea that I just listened to millions of people. You're Jesus Christ. Next, you have to become a city official in charge of industry, or agriculture, or education, or commerce. Then you become a mayor. It will take you another few years. In 1990, President Xi became the top leader of Fuzhou City, Fujian province. Now, fight for the governor. You need to repeat your previous work. The difference is that your responsibilities are greater and your work is more onerous. In 2000, President Xi became governor of Fujian province, a new political star. This is great. This is great. After becoming the governor of a relatively small province, you have to be the governor of a relatively large province. Or you can go to border areas, such as Xinjiang or Tibet. President Hu Jintao, a former supreme leader of China, was once governor of Tibet. The Political Bureau is one of the central leading bodies of the CPC. You must be a member of it. Members of the Political Bureau are elected by the plenary session of the Central Committee. Can you imagine Donald Trump happening in this? Can you imagine like a Donald Trump arising amidst all of this? Deputies to the National People's Congress are members of the highest organ of state power in China and are elected in accordance with law. You also have to be one of the NPCs. If you can become a member of the Standing Committee of Political Bureau in the CPC Central Committee, it usually consists of 7 or 9 people, which means that you have entered the core of China's state power. In 2007, President Xi was elected. Similarly, different standing committees are responsible for managing different areas of the country. Through fierce competition, you finally become the top leader of China. In 2012, President Xi succeeded. Although he can be called political genius, which country's leader is not, he still spent 40 years on this road. The above is the difficult road for you to become China's top leader. I call it Chinese-style democracy. It is based on a strict selection system and the election of deputies to the People's Congress at all levels. In China, it works. Every country should choose a political system suitable for its national conditions. No good or bad. What disgusts me is that some Westerners always think that their system is good. I don't agree. I only believe in the facts. Convince me with facts. Thank you. Ah, what a wonderful, thank you for sharing that, Dan Boxes. That was what a wonderful, expression. And of course, I think that's very simple and very straightforward. And as always, as we've been talking today, right, this is just a dude on Twitter, right? This is just a dude on Twitter, right? Given his opinion, but his opinion is just as valid as your opinion is. And so I really loved that. That was really nice. Wow. Today's chat is going crazy. Today's chat's lovely. Sorry for playing devil's advocate here. I just have honest question. You're not playing devil's advocate, Kate. We're having a discussion. We're trying to find a common ground. These are the discussions we must be having as we build solidarity with one another. That for real. And honestly, one of the great joys of doing this channel is I find that there's a lot of YouTubers and commentators who feel they always need to be correct. And I'm very, very happy to be corrected. I would prefer to be corrected, right? If you can show me a source document that refutes something that I've been saying in a clean and concise way, I want you to do that because I want to live in the truth. I want my feet on the truth. So many times I will espouse a position and people will actually say to me John, why are you doing that? Why are you espousing this position? And I've come to learn that the most concise thing that you can say to people is because it's true. Because it's true. And that's good enough. Right? I think in the world we live in, we may only reach a certain level of perfection. Well, I mean, we humans are so distractible and so corruptible and so easy to go down weird little rabbit holes and weird little rabbit holes that we need to have checks and balances, and we need to have structures and the structures need to be solid. What we just talked about there with the Chinese democracy sounds like a very strong structure. Sounds like it would be very unassailable. How do you corrupt such a structure, right? I think it would be very difficult to do. Although I'm sure there are people who are trying. Just that typing material conditions, as you said, that beat me to it. Conduct smash and grabs. LOL, just kidding. I mean, revolt, rebel. Their property is not worth more than your life. There's a great Emma Gold quote. If you ask for work and they don't give it to you, ask for bread. And if they won't give you that, take the bread. Their property is not worth more than your life. I would love to watch you react to a video essay I made about what you were talking about with forcing change. If I get into your Discord, I'll shoot it. Well, the way to get into my Discord is that you just donate $1. You donate $1 to the Patreon, you get into the Discord. And everybody's got $1. Everybody's got $1. In philosophy, there are 2 major schools of thought, idealism and materialism. Idealists assert that there is something immaterial about reality that makes us independent from material conditions. Materialists assert that we are shaped by material conditions. You know what's funny, Loaf? Is that I genuinely do think that those two schools of thoughts are intrinsically linked. Like, this is what I talk about when I start talking about, like, don't be a fundamentalist. Because, like, you're telling me there's two schools of thought and that those two schools of thought are independent from one another, and I don't see it that way. I see these two things as intrinsically linked, and that the material will lead you to the ideal, and the ideal will lead you to the material. And being rooted in those two things firmly will give you a much clearer picture of what is real and what is actually going on. And that's certainly what I assert, and I've always asserted, right? That we are like quantum light beings walking around this place pretending as though we're not. That reality gives us an equality of validity with one another. That you are as equal as the president of the United States or the president of China or Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. That you are equivalent. You are equal in your validity to them. Your lived experience is the same. Not that your lived experience is the same, but that the validity of your experience is the same. That so much of how these capitalists get away with so much bullshit is by convincing us that they are somehow superior when they are, by definition, not. They can't be. It's not possible. There is no such thing as a superior life, right? Every life is valid and valid in its experience. And that's where I operate from. And everything I just said there is rooted deeply in the material, but also in the ideal. A sale, if you will. I love Chris Hedges. Yeah, Chris Hedges is brilliant. I've read everything he's ever written. He's a brilliant man, and he's going to be remembered as one of the great prophets of our time. Huey P. Newton. I think that human nature will forever bring a certain inevitable corruption. Yeah? No, but you're right, Kate. Like, human nature is corruptible. Like, we are corruptible. We forget what we are all the time. We allow the illusion of our narrow viewpoint and the illusion of this sort of place that we're in take control. And we forget what we are and what we're actually here to do all the time. This is why I talk about the worship of money. Like, we worship money as if it's a real thing, right? And it isn't. Like, money is fake. It's the most fake thing in the world. Nothing is faker than money. We invented it ourselves. It's a little tool that we use to help organize ourselves, but we're caught in the worship of it, right? Like, we venerate people who have lots of money. We ourselves sacrifice our entire lives in the pursuit of it, right? And it's nothing. It's completely pointless. And we are. It's easy to get us to go down that road, right? Like, we are easily temptable. The powerful would say, keep the rabble in check and out of our business. Yeah, of course the powerful would say that, right? Of course they would say that. Like, their goal is to have us do all the work while they do nothing. Like, that's the goal. Like, they want to go golfing. That's all. They want to go golfing and they want to fuck around, right? They want to go to Jeffrey Epstein's sex island. Like, that's what they want. Like, they don't want to have to also participate in the society and do work and be considered an equal, right, with everybody. That's not what they're interested in. Idealism tries to explain the mysteries of the world by appealing to some other mysterious thing outside of reality. They tend to be more religious and they often believe in great man theory. Yeah. Like, there's failings within all of it, right? But, like, I don't think, like, what is reality? Right? Like, what is reality? Like, like, quantum mechanics tells us mathematically that reality is like a singular energy, and all of this is resting upon this singular energy, and we don't know why. Like, we don't know why. We just know that it is. And we know that there are, because it's, okay, I'll just dive into it, right? The question that I always ask about this idea that there is a quantum energy that we are all within and we all rest upon is the energy sentient? Does it have a life of its own, right? And the only thing that I can come up with is that, well, it's got to be at least as sentient as we are, right? Because we are it and it is us, right? That it doesn't rest outside of us, that it is actually us. And everything you see, right? That we are like illusions. That the idea of our individualism is in some way illusionary, right? Because we are all the same thing. That you and I and Nova Scotia and propaganda and like all of it, we are all aspects of this energy that have been created, I believe, in order to discover what the fuck is this. I don't think the energy knows what it's doing here, right? Like, I think it literally is here. It doesn't understand why, and it's trying to find out why. And so it created beings that are capable of abstract thought who can discuss these things with one another, and is attempting to genuinely figure out what is this? What am I? Anyway, I could feel people like unsubscribing every single time I start talking about that. But to me, that's fundamental. That's core, right? That's core. What I just said there, I don't even like to use the word I believe. Like that is what is happening, right? We know the quantum energy exists. We know that it has to have a certain degree of sentience because we have a certain degree of sentience. And it has to at least be as sentient as we are, right? And the only purpose it would have for even being interested in investigating any of this reality would be to answer the question, what? And that's it. And we get in our own assholes about it. We act like the dumb fucking little monkeys we are. And just forget that, like, no, we are not just evolved apes. We are not just monkeys. We are energy. We are energy. We are quantum beings. We are that. Like, and everybody you meet, I don't care what your opinion is of them. Their experience is as valid as your experience. Like, I don't care what you say in order to denigrate them or feel superior or any of that kind of stuff, because it's not relevant. To the quantum energy, their lived experience is just as valid as your experience. And we should be talking to one another with the understanding that when we talk to one another, like when I talk to you and when you talk to me, we're talking to quantum beings. We're talking to different aspects of the quantum energy. Wouldn't life be way different if we thought this way? Wouldn't the world be a different place if we acknowledged the truth, which is that we are quantum beings? And if we took care of like the base material necessities, food and shelter, then what you would be left with is a bunch of light beings, a bunch of quantum beings, figuring out what the fuck this is. Like, what the fuck is all this? Like, what the fuck is this? Why are we here? What are we doing? What's the point? Do you actually think the point of this existence is to destroy the planet? I don't think so. I think that that's a waste. That's just a bunch of scared little monkeys. Right? Anyway, as you can see, I told you about an hour ago, I said to somebody, I can go pretty deep down this shit. Anyway, I'm going to move on because this is a very lively chat. John Ralston Stahl, yeah. John Pillar, Kim Il-sung, yeah. Kim Il-sung has good writings. Slavoj Žižek is interesting, but I don't find him to be that profound. I've got to be really straightforward with it. Like, I don't find him to be that profound. He's interesting, though. Energetic. Yeah, Plato and Socrates are bae for sure. Materialists reject that and seek to explain the mysteries of the world by appealing to the material conditions that we can understand. What happens when you surround the halls of power? Fascists are a big part of the populace, so there's resistance on all sides. Of course there is. Of course there is. Am I Christian? My background is evangelical Christianity. I have read like Thomas Aquinas, Augustus, Isaac Newton is one of the great theologians. Like this is the thing that really bugs me about the secular scientists these days, is that they like deride theologians but venerate Newton. And one of the great theologians was Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton created a 2-page tract on the nature of God that I think is like crucial to understanding what the theologians were saying. And once you see that like the quantum energy that I'm talking about here, right, this mathematical thing that we've proven is like this singular energy that underpins all of reality, is the same thing as what the theologians were talking about, that there's a linking there, it becomes very interesting. Like very, very interesting. And so I tend to articulate things from the Christian perspective, but I would not say that I am a Christian. Although I think that I'm probably more of a Christian than the people who are walking around saying they're Christians these days. Honestly. Like, you're holding on to a Bible that tells you to give your money to the poor. Do you? No? You keep those people poor? Oh. Real Christian there. Like, I agree with Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter came out recently and said that the people who are calling themselves Christians these days would close the door on Christ. Like, that ties into my larger sort of statement, which is that there isn't a single institution in North America that has validity anymore. All of our institutions are corrupted, and irredeemably so. Like, we will not be able to reform our way out of it. That, like, the Christian churches have capitulated authority to capitalism, and capitalism has corrupted them so irrecoverably, that we won't be able to recover them. That we have to cut them off like a dead limb. And if you ask me, the number one way to actually achieve that and to do that is to actually read the Bible. Like, read the Bible. Like, and I'm not talking about study it. I'm not talking about like sit there with a thing and write things and like, oh my God, and like write a thesis or any of this kind of. Do a cursory reading. Read it like it's Harry Potter. And I actually even go so far as to say, read one of the Gospels. One. Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Read one of these. And you will see very quickly that modern Christianity has nothing to do with the Bible. That these two things have diverged completely, and that the modern Christian churches are just an aspect of capital now. That they're just capitalism with a little cross on top. That's all it is. And I'll even entice you further, right? Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. So Matthew wrote a diary, right? He was following Christ around, writing a diary. Some of the best lectures that Christ gave, some of the best speeches that he gave, come out of Matthew, because Matthew was just sitting there with his diary, writing it down, right? Walking around with Christ, but he was a tax collector, right? So he like literally was like keeping excellent notes. You got Mark. Mark followed Peter, the leader of the church, around, right? Peter was an illiterate fisherman who was telling Mark stories. So everything is kind of done in this like campfire story sort of way, right? Where you've got Mark, a scribe, following Peter, the leader of the church, around, writing down what he said, right? So Matthew is a first-hand account. Mark is a secondary account, told kind of after the fact. Luke is interesting because Luke was a historian, right? Luke goes into the area after the events are over and gets the story from the people who are saying the story. And because he wasn't fleeing from the Romans or had fear of execution or any of this, remember, most of the apostles were killed, with the exception of John. So he has no fear of that. So he's just a historian, and he gets like the best sort of historical aspect of it. This is what the people said, right? And most people really like Luke. John was the apostle that Jesus loved. That's what it says in the text. John was the apostle that Jesus loved. And you can take that wherever you'd like. And so what you end up with, John, is you end up with a really human version of Jesus. That Jesus, this is where Jesus stops being the deity figure, right? Son of God, and starts being a man, starts being a person. And then if you carry that into the Gnostics, Christ becomes more and more a human figure. So I challenge anybody and everybody, read one of those Gospels. You don't have to read all 4 of them, right? Read one of those Gospels, and you will probably know more than every Christian in the world today. Because, well, in North America, certainly. Because they don't read the book. They don't follow what it says. They don't care what Christ thinks, right? They care about capitalism. Deng Xiaoping was a capitalist. No, I don't think he was a capitalist, right? Like Deng was he opened China's markets to capitalism, right? Which Mao was actually in despair of. Mao was not in favor of it, but Deng did it. And Deng did it because his seminal statement was, let some people become rich first. That unlike the West, where it's just chaos brings order, right? Unlike this chaos brings order and chaos and oh yeah, we'll do that, that's fine. And then, oh, it collapses, who cares, we'll move on, all that kind of stuff, right? Instead of that, the Chinese make a plan. They have a 100-year plan. You can read it. You can find it. It's easy to find. They don't hide it. They create a 100-year plan, which they revisit every 5 years and redress as they need to, right? And Deng opening up markets to foreign capital was part of this plan. That you can actually now see Xi Jinping, years later, enacting the second part of that plan. So the capital comes in, right? Some people get rich, right? Institutions are erected, all that kind of stuff. And then the state comes by and says, okay, great. Now that belongs to the state. Oh, you have that wealth? Okay, we're going to take that and redistribute it. And that's all part of the plan. So Deng Xiaoping was not a capitalist. He just allowed capitalists in, and the capitalists assumed that by being allowed in, that meant they owned the place, because Westerners are very arrogant that way. And meanwhile, the communists are just like, let them think that. Let them think they own the place. Let them think that. Like, the Chinese are better at this than we are. By a lot. By a significant amount. Right? Like, we're playing a game of checkers, they're playing a game of chess. Like, we're playing like tiddlywinks. We're playing like tiddlywinks, and they're playing like Go. Like, we are not even playing the same game. And what has been brilliant about researching China and Chinese history has been really realizing that China is completely fine with letting the Americans believe what they want. That's what's been brilliant. You get all of these articles coming out of America being like, yeah, China, we're taking over and it's collapsing and all that kind of stuff. And the Chinese are just like, oh. And that's it. And then China builds 11 cities out of nothing, right? Has an economy that's skyrocketing, literally building a moon base, is militarily unassailable. And America is now like, China? And China's like, yes. They're better at this than we are, by a significant amount. And as America goes into a decline, and as its infrastructure starts to collapse, and as it stops being responsive to the needs of the people, and as it reverts to a techno-feudalism, which is what is happening, China is going to keep moving along. In 10 years, what I am saying now is going to get obvious, guys. It's going to get obvious. Like, in 10 years, it will be obvious. In 20 years, it will be extremely obvious. And the only thing, in my view, that could really ruin China's run is if it takes the turn and becomes militant. But it doesn't need to. That's what's brilliant about China. It doesn't need to. It's already winning this thing. It's already winning. And and it's winning by creating alliances, uplifting everybody, right? Are you kidding me? Like the Belt and Road Initiative, if you guys don't know, I should have brought this up a long time ago. This is the Belt and Road Initiative, okay? This is kind of old, but this is more or less what it looks like. So all of the red that you're seeing here is high-speed rail. It goes from between 200 and 600 kilometers per hour. This is rail that does not exist in the United States. It does not exist in Canada, North American. We're not building this rail. The red rail that you're seeing is rail that is already completed. So you can see from the manufacturing base of China into Russia, right? Through Belarus. Anytime you see any news about, like, ask, like, why do I hear about Belarus all the time? Why am I constantly hearing about Belarus in the news? Why does anybody care about Belarus, right? It's because the Belt and Road Initiative goes right through Belarus, right through Minsk, right? So obviously the West is trying to get the EU to put sanctions on Minsk so that the Belt and Road Initiative will be less effective, right? Look at this, right? And this pink stuff that you're seeing down here, right? This is rail yet to be built, okay? And you can see how hard they're working to not get into Afghanistan, to avoid Afghanistan and Iraq, right? They want to build a rail from Tehran into Turkey. They've already built some rail in Turkey. And you can see how hard they're working here. But now that the Americans have left, Afghanistan, they're building a rail already. They're building a rail right through the Wakhan corridor into Kabul, right? Boom, right here. Connect, and then they're going to connect that into Tehran through Mashhad. And then once the Americans leave Iraq, they're going to connect from Tehran into Baghdad. And then this is where it gets a bit speculative, but it looks like all the pieces are this way. Saudi Arabia knows that the Americans are declining and they know they're pulling out of the region. And Saudi Arabia, they are evil geniuses. They are evil political geniuses. They are always on the right side of power. Like, they are a brilliant nation this way. They are building a city called Neom, which stands for New Future, right here. Why are they doing that? So that China can build a rail from Baghdad to Riyadh, and then from Baghdad probably, and from Riyadh into Medina as well, into this new city here. Why do they need to do that? Because they know they'll never get a rail into Israel. And if they can't get a rail into Israel, they'll get it into Neom, and then they're building a tunnel underneath this through the Gulf of Aqaba, right? They're building a tunnel. The rail will go underneath the tunnel here, right? So there's not even going to be a bridge or anything for them to blow up. The tunnel will go right into here, right into Egypt, which will then go into, Suez Canal, Cairo, and then Bob's your uncle. You're in Africa. So the Chinese are literally connecting most of the world's population together with high-speed rail that's going to create a series of trade alliances that everybody else on the continent is not going to be able to fight back against, right? You'll notice India has not yet gotten on board with this. You can see how they're somewhat excluded. And it's because India is still quite neoliberal and still quite skeptical of China. That'll break down. Once you see what happens in Afghanistan, when this rail connects, they're going to have this rail built into Afghanistan in less than 5 years. And then in another 5 years, Afghanistan is going to be a completely different place. It's going to be a completely different place. And no one is going to be able to deny it. So China's securing its own future, not through dropping bombs or military might or any of that, but by trading, by being nice. And they're even doing things like, so for example, in what port was that? Okay, China understands that money is not real. They really do understand that. They understand that money isn't real. And so they keep getting into these situations with poorer nations where they're like, hey, can we build a port here? Right? In like Mawara, right? And Mawara is like, yeah, we'd love that. And China's like, cool, we'll float you a loan, right? And we'll use that to build the port. And then through the activity of the port, right, well, you pay back that loan. And Mawara is like, great, that sounds great, right? So then they build the port. And then Mawara is like, we don't know if we'll be able to pay that loan back. And China goes, don't worry about it. And Mawara goes, what? And China goes, yeah, don't worry about it. Can we use the port? And Mawara's like, yeah. Oh, yeah, great. Do you think the Americans would do that? Do you think the Americans would be like, oh, that's fine, yeah, for sure? Or do you think they would be like, you're going to pay that back and we're going to take it out in blood? Which one of those two do you think America would actually do? And America would never get involved in this idea of like, yeah, let's work with the government of Mawara in order to build a port. Like, that's not happening. Like, China is going to make the West look like baby's first government. Because guess what, guys? It is baby's first government. Like, the United States government was literally like the first crack at a governing system after they declared their independence from literally the King of England. Like, baby's first government. Right? The Chinese have been doing this for 4,000 years. Damn the Romans. Oh God, am I becoming a communist by watching you? Yeah, that's the goal, bud. That's the goal. Because, like, the reality is that communism is built on science, materialism, historical analysis, facts. Whereas capitalism is a religious ideology, largely. That is based on this sort of fraudulent idea that if we carve up the world and own pieces of it, and claim that we own pieces of it, that this is a good way to organize ourselves. It's kind of embarrassing, actually. Like, once you take like a large meta view, like, no one can own anything. That's not a real concept. You don't own anything. Really. Like, and once you understand like how your life actually looks, that you are born into this reality without your consent, you're just here, right? You're having an experience, right? And then you die. And within the confines of that experience, you said, I own this cup. This cup I own, and I have the sacred cupness of the cupping cup. It's really dumb. Like, it's really dumb. And the idea that you're drawing an invisible line around a parcel of land and saying, oh, it's mine, only I own it. It's kind of childish. But I mean, baby's first government, right? So. This is a good chat. You guys are all over. Uh-oh, Loaf and I are about to go at it. Wow, you guys are really fucking chatting away. And you know what I'm loving about it, though? You know what I really am loving about it is that you guys are having a really respectful conversation. I really value that. Boy, do I ever value that. I really, like, I get into some people, some of these streams, like Hassan's stream is just like emojis and like it's just ridiculous. Like, this is a very thoughtful conversation that you guys are having, and I really value that. Yeah, I do find that a lot of people are more driven by their political direction as a sports team rather than rationale. Yeah, tribalism, that's what that is. Tribalism. Which should be avoided like the plague. Should be avoided like the plague. It's the death of thinking. Like, pick a team and fight for that team no matter what that team does. Always try to justify it. Like, I consider myself a communist, but like, I know that Stalin made errors. I know that there were things that he did that were probably not the best, right? But I also see him as a person who is like leading this grand experiment. The first nation to try to build a society on Marxian principles. It's an incredible thing to attempt. Yeah, look at the approval ratings of CPC, high 80s, low 90s, absolutely. John sends the Discord invite through the Patreon most of the time, I believe. Don't think anyone else has the authority to send invites. That's right. You have to donate $1. If you want into the Discord, it costs $1. $1 to my Patreon. That's it. I guarantee you have $1. And then you're in. Yeah, then you've got a true sub. Yeah, I don't want the riffraff in. I want people who are here to participate. He and I have different opinions on enough things. Would presume speaking. I've just been hanging out lots for several months. Oh yeah, love. I value you. I value you being here, bud. I'll see if I have $1 left in a prepaid credit card. Yeah. I prefer differing opinions. No good conversations come from two people that think similarly. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm way behind, dude. This is busy. This is busy. I'd like to learn. True. Some are always inherently bad. Do you think there's a solution to every soul? I think there will always be more evil in more than a few. Well, I mean, take fascism, for example. Like, if you are saying that we need to round people up and kill them, yeah, like based on their race or based on some kind of distinguishing factor, like, yeah, you don't get to be part of the conversation anymore. Like, bye-bye. So many people don't get that the money is not what matters. It's our labor and our resources that matters. Exactly. Exactly, propaganda. There can be evil homeless, but decent people with wealth. But the thing, Kate, is that it's the system itself, right? Like, Noam Chomsky had a really great thing to say to this, and I'll iterate it here, which is there were probably fine people, good people who worked under slavery, right? That, like, slavery, that the problem wasn't that there were good people or bad people working within the system of slavery. The problem was that the system of slavery itself was evil, that the structure of it was evil. And so it doesn't matter if there are decent people with wealth or evil homeless people or any of that. It's the structure itself that is the problem. Because you can't be a decent person with wealth. Because the accumulation of wealth itself is the problem. Hey DM, how you doing? Happy December. Liberals are capable of high-speed passing bill legislation. Bill C4, just not, yeah, basic income, any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, forget that. We are finite. I believe anything outside of us would be infinite. Well, by all estimations, the energy we subsist by is. We're basically holograms. Yeah, we really are. Like, and when we go, we return to the energy that spawned us. I think we'll take a massive DMT trip to make me open to idealism again. Yeah. Or like meditation, yoga. I disagree. Clearly, anything above us and able to create such intricacies beyond our comprehension should be far outside of us. You're speaking about us as having a purpose. But all the evidence we have shows that we are it and it is us. That it is one and the same. That there's nothing outside of us. Like, there's nothing outside of the energy. Like, it is what creates and sustains and underpins all of reality. And it isn't outside us. There is no externality on this. That it is us and we are it. And I don't mean specifically humanity. Like, that's all things. Yeah, I'm too jaded about idealism after leaving Mormonism. Yeah, need some LSD to chill out again. Yeah. Like, the institutional religions have really fucked everything up for lots of people, for sure. Downward social comparison. Don't know if I understand that, but that's okay. I'm going to go scrub the quantum energy that is a toilet. If anybody is rooted in reality, buddy, it's you. Christian meaning like believing in Jesus' resurrection. Well, the trouble that most modern Christians have is that they're treating the text as if it's literal, right? Which is that, like, Jesus literally dies and literally comes back and literally ascends and literally all of that actually happened, literally. And it's like, obviously not. Like, obviously these are storytelling devices that the purpose of the resurrection story is to say that they can kill us as individuals, but they cannot kill the message so long as we continue to resurrect it, right? So Jesus dies, but the story is resurrected through someone like the Apostle Paul, right? And then Paul dies, but the story is resurrected through the Nicene Council. And the Nicene Council, all of those guys die, but then it's resurrected, and then it's resurrected, and then it's resurrected. And that the idea of the resurrection is that the forces, the forces of power that are trying to eliminate these sorts of ideas can only be defeated by passing the baton from generation to generation. This is why they work so hard to create intergenerational strife, right? They want to create intergenerational strife so that we won't take a baton from the next generation, so that we'll just sacrifice the next generation to the powerful. And we won't believe anything that the older generation has to say to us. We won't take the baton. We won't resurrect the figure of Christ, right? That we'll just cede all of that authority to the powerful. No. Yeah, the prosperity gospel, man. The prosperity gospel is straight up heretical. Like, in theoretical terms, it's heresy, what they're doing. Like, it's the darkest, bleakest shit ever. Christ himself literally fought against those sorts of people. Read one gospel. Read one gospel. See, here's a point of disagreement between John and I. I'm not even convinced that Jesus existed, and the scholarship that I have seen indicates that none of the Gospels are firsthand. Here's the thing, Loaf, is that it doesn't matter. Like, it literally doesn't matter. Like, I learned that fairly early on, right? So what? Who cares? It's completely irrelevant. Like, if Christ existed or if Christ didn't exist, it doesn't matter at all. That what matters is that there was an organization or a group of people who told these stories in an empire that crucified them, boiled them in oil, beheaded them, drowned them for telling that story, right? Like, that's what's profound about it. It's not that there literally was a wizard walking around and Jesus is God and the lightning bolts and all, like, raise the dead and drinking and magic is real and all of that. Forget it. Forget it. What makes the story profound and interesting and worthy of study and introspection is that the people who were telling the story were all killed for it, were all executed by power structures, by empires, and the people who were executed and killed won. That the Roman Empire is dead. I have a copy of the Bible right here. The Roman Empire is dead. Here's the Bible. Who won? Who won? That's what's profound. That's what's profound about this text. It literally doesn't matter if Christ was real or not. The fact that they felt the need to create the figure of Christ and were willing to die for it is what matters. What do we got? Deuteronomy. Oh yeah, you're going way back, eh? Deuteronomy. This is when we're like wandering in the wilderness and shit, dude. This is when we're like really as close to the apes as we can get. Deuteronomy 21:11. Oh yes. Female captives, right? When you go to war against your enemies, and the Lord your God hands them over to you, and you take them captive, suppose you see among the captives a beautiful woman, whom you desire and want to marry, and so you bring her home to your house. She shall shave her head, pare her nails, discard her captive's garb, and shall remain in your house a full month, mourning for her father and mother. After that you may go in to her and be her husband, and she shall be your wife. But if you are not satisfied with her, you shall let her go free, and not sell her for money. You have not treated her as a slave, since you must not treat her as a slave, since you have dishonored her. It's a real, like, Klingon thing, eh? Like, real, like, you have gone to war. You wish to copulate with her. This is how you must move forward. Yep. Like, the book of Deuteronomy was written after, if the story is to be understood, is written after the Jews flee, or the Israelites flee from Egypt and are literally wandering around in the desert. Like, different times. Brutal times, as you can see. The people who are walking around being like, we need to follow the Bible's laws. I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, shut up. That's so stupid. You sound dumb. But, like, that really does tell you something about the culture and where we came from and where we can go. Right? We can go back to that. We can go back here. Right? For sure we can. And, like, there is, like, an oddly civilizing, like, you've got to make sure that she's healthy, right? Shave her head, bugs, all that, lice, don't bring that shit into the community. And if you've just got to set her free. She's not a slave, right? And war. That's what makes the Bible a complex document, is that it's about many things. Laws, war, civilization building, right? A people struggling with the elements, Oh, shit. No, my computer. Oh, please don't be broken. Are you okay, baby? Yeah, you're okay. Oh, took a little tumble, my little netbook did. Oh, God. I always get terrified when that shit happens. That's what I get for piling stuff. Okay. Oh yeah, dude, and I'm actually surprised that you just, if you want real rough stuff, there's way worse stuff than that in the Bible. Well, whether your beliefs, there's at least a lot of evidence of Jesus existing. Again, I just think it doesn't really matter, right? It's fun to talk about, but like, but I just don't. It just doesn't matter. Like, really. Shady. Canada needs its Belt and Road Initiative. Yeah. Well, and we used to have that. That's what the railway system was. Right? The railway system was a Belt and Road Initiative. Explicitly stated. Like, John A. Macdonald was straight up like, we got to get that railway built. It's what's going to unify Canada. And it did. I have no idea how many of the pharaohs actually existed, but again, I agree it's likely existed. Some of Richard Carrier's mythist's arguments compelling, but I generally defer to Ehrman. Oh, wow. Putin wanted to build a rail from Siberia to Alaska under the Bering Strait. Yeah. That would be a good idea, if you ask me. I was thinking about that the other night. Like, this should happen, man. Like, we should for sure. Like, from Wales to, you could get it to, like, Diomed here into Hélène, right? Connect it right in, right? And then like connects in, right? You get it right in through Canada, right, into the United States, for sure. I think that's wise. Maoists defending the Taliban, where people have to sell their kids to survive, and women have absolutely no rights. Well, I mean, the Afghanistan situation is tough, and it is tough. Like, first of all, they're experiencing a massive famine because of the actions of the United States after they're leaving Afghanistan. They're not just leaving Afghanistan and being like, okay, good luck, bye. Like, they're taking a huge dump on Afghanistan on their way out, right? For sure. The people who have taken power are absolutely the extremists, the Taliban, right? Far right extremists. And the argument there is always that, like, yep, the people of Afghanistan trust their own far right extremists more than they trust foreign Americans, right? And no, it's a shitty situation all around, dude. It is. It's just going to be a shit show. Like, that's war. And it's not about defending it. It's about saying, like, it's fucking war. Like, it's going to be a total shit show, no matter what you do. What matters is how is the country moving forward. And I think the reason why the Maoists are leaping to the defense is because they see this. They see that there's going to be a connection from the Kashgar prefecture into Kabul through the Wakhan corridor, right? And then that's going to link China and Afghanistan together in a trade organization that's going to create an alliance. And then from Kabul into Tehran, because Iran and China already have pretty tight relations, and that this whole thing is going to become like a pretty strong trade alliance, right? So the Maoists are thinking in terms of like the meta, whereas I think people like yourself are more concerned about the day-to-day, and it's all true. Like, that's what makes it complex. Like, it's all true. Like, it's shitty what's happening in Afghanistan, and it's going to be shitty. It can't not be. That's war. You guys are talking, dude. I don't think the chat has ever been this chatty. I scrolled down 30 minutes. Come on, Kate. Bart Ehrman is among the most respected Bible scholars there are. He can and has read the majority of ancient Greek and Hebrew. Yeah. I'm curious about how people feel about the colonization of the U.S. natives. I mean, it's a genocide. It's a total genocide. Oh, land back. Yeah. Land back is the movement. Yep. I think that's right. Thanks, DM. Congrats on 800 subs. Go out tonight, have a loaded burrito to celebrate. I think I'm going to stay in tonight. Maybe I'll go get a drink, though. Maybe tonight I'll have a celebratory drink. The reason I asked about the U.S. natives is the tribes existing before the Pilgrims were already separating and at war. But that's their business, right? That's their business. Like, we don't have the right to go in and seize their shit because they were having disagreements with one another. But I mean, I think, Loaf, you're on the right path. Like, we take the First Nations side. We understand that there is like a colonial aspect to what happened in America. We understand that the First Nations people have their own rights. We understand that what happened in the United States and Canada was and is a continuing genocide, right? And we can have disagreements to the degrees that we want to see, but like here in Canada, we have like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and I think that that's a fine place to start. We should actually do it. But Choctaw would scalp other tribes. Yeah. That's war, baby. That's war. Colonization and capitalism created this world. We can't go back. Unity is the way forward. Well, what does that mean? Unity is the way forward. Like, I often find that people will say unity, and what they mean is these people should just submit. Right? Like when the PPC says it, that's what they mean. They mean that minority groups should submit to the white supremacist power structure. That's what they mean. And is that like if I'm a First Nations person living, like if I'm a Wet'suwet'en living in Wet'suwet'en land, I'm like, unity? Nope. No, I don't think so. Tribes had very established societies. There were certain conflicts between them, as there are with many, but the Pilgrims were incredibly brutal. Well, I mean, like the plagues, like the smallpox, alone, like the shit that happened. Like forget about the United States, man. What happened in South America was incredible. What happened in South America was incredible. The Europeans destroyed at least 3 civilizations. All right? Forget about this idea that you have in your head of like a roving band of natives going around, right? Hunting the buffalo, riding horses, right? Forget about that. We're talking about building cities, forging gold, civilizations. And the Europeans went in and destroyed at least 3. The Incans, the Mayans, and the Aztecs. Destroyed them. They don't exist anymore. There's no land back movement for the Aztecs. They're gone. Like, what happened in South America was crazy brutal. Crazy brutal. And the only real difference, and like that, and this, when the Spanish went in there, they went in there to do that. They literally were like, we're going to land here, we're going to fuck these people up, we're going to steal their shit, and they did. The Americans couldn't, like the British couldn't do that. They landed and they didn't have the same kind, like first of all, things were a bit more spread out. They didn't have the same kind of forces, right? You've got crazy stories like the St. James Fort, where like 500 men landed, and in the space of a year, the number had dwindled down to 50. Like, and it was John Smith. We all know John Smith from Pocahontas, right? He came in order to try and turn it around. And instead of taking the conquering route, they took a more trade and living with route, which resulted in what we have today, right? And it was like this negotiation. There was a constant negotiation that we never kept our side of it. But we were never really able to get to the same level of vicious, insane genocide that occurred in South America. But we had our moments, and it certainly was a genocide. But Kate, this is like, so what? Like, you believe some of the more aggressive tribes were more brutal than the Pilgrims, so what? Like, this is their land, they were here, they were born here, right? And we committed an invasion on them. We colonized them. Like, I don't think the question of their brutality or any of that even comes into it. Why does it matter? I do not think any of those acts were humane. My thoughts were more that the whole world went through phases of industrialism. I mean, it certainly was industrialism in the United Kingdom and the rest of in Europe that really set the stage for what we're experiencing now. Like, big shift. The industrial era, for sure. I'm indifferent about the monarch, to be honest. The costs way more than they should, but in terms of the effect of governing, act stands on the ground, ancient laws. So I don't take any of the biblical stories literally. It's magic, guys. Like, there's magic. There's magic. Come on. There's magic. Like, I don't... Right? Like, no, I don't take stories that have magic in them literally. Like, well, and sometimes they're not even metaphors. Sometimes they're just kick ass. Right? Like the story of Samson. Like, the story of Samson's just kick ass. Like, why does it have to be anything more than that? Only the winners, yeah. Ecclesiastes 10:19, money is the answer to everything. That is definitely not what that verse says. I have a Freemason Bible from a relative who passed. It has nice art. Yeah, lots of good religious art, for sure. Book of Mormon. Ecclesiastes is a brilliant book. It goes in with some of the greatest philosophical texts ever written, for sure. You guys are doing great. Hi, Isaac. I've just heard that home ownership in Cuba is 95%. And people are not allowed to pay more than 4% of their income in rent. Yeah. Communism, eh? What a pain in the ass. What a huge pain in the ass. Everybody owning their own homes and rent has to be like super low. Which incidentally, 4% of the income in rent was the same amount of rent that was legally chargeable in the Soviet Union. Right? Like, you were not allowed to... Like, I pay literally 60% of my income on rent. Like, it's grotesque. And then we're like, oh, what's happening to our economy? Like, it isn't hard to figure out. It isn't hard to figure out. It's not a mystery. It's made complex by people who want it to be complex. Technically, the most recent church position is that we never taught that you get your own planet. But when I was younger, it was definitely a thing that was taught. We never taught that you'd get your own planet? Oh, you're talking about Mormonism, yeah. Do you think war is inevitable? Yeah. Like, war is conflict between people, and we're very short-sighted. We're very short-sighted. Massive genocides between tribes, too. Please don't think I'm against any opinions. talking about what was in their hands, though. If the natives were more advanced, would they not destroy neighboring tribes? But like, I just don't get it. Like, I don't get, why does any of that matter? Like, does that mean that we had the right to come in and colonize them? I don't understand. Like, they are having internal disputes with one another that we likely don't know anything about, right? And that and Loaf's kind of touching on it, which is like, we don't really know what their systems looked like. Like, surely there are scholars and things like this, but in my experience, most of the time when I start to investigate something, I find that the narrative that I'm being told is inaccurate, right? And usually inaccurate in order to justify the colonizer or the winner of the war. And it's like it's a bit confusing to me in the first place that we thought we had the right to just expand territory in here, throughout Africa, into India, all that shit. Like, but we did. And we did it. Just, I don't know, I think adventurism seizes hold of people, you know? Sometimes people are just like, let's go fuck shit up. The clearing of the Amazon rainforest revealed a lot more ruins and infrastructure. It wasn't just the Incas. South America was home to many civilizations. Yeah, of course. And the colonization is still ongoing, of course. The Gitscan had complete property laws that I've studied. Yes, I think that's right, Kate. We are all humans, and it's good to take that perspective, I think. And because you can create a lot of understanding and forgiveness. But that goes to a certain point, right? Like, the guys that are walking around holding documents saying we should kill people, right? We should say, hey, that's not cool, right? So that would be most of America, most of American history, like, you know, the Nazis, Mussolini, right? People who literally, like, held up documents that they themselves wrote and said, yeah, let's do a genocide. When will we actually get our own high-speed rail? Well, I mean, here's the problem. So Trudeau has said that they want to build a rail from Toronto to Montreal, right? Got a high-speed rail in there. He keeps talking about that. The capitalists have no reason whatsoever to buy into this, right? That a high-speed rail from Toronto to Montreal sounds good and all, but the capitalists are going to do everything they can to stand in the way. They're not going to fund it, right? It's not a money-making venture. It doesn't benefit them, right? So why would they want it, right? Like, I mean, it's good in like a society building kind of a way. It's good from a perspective of like, hey, maybe we should build a society and actually be part of a society with one another. But from a capitalist perspective, it doesn't make me money, and that's all I care about because I worship money. That's it. So even the declaration that we're going to get a high-speed rail from Toronto to Montreal, well, what's going to happen is, so let's say they want to put the rail in along the like 115 or like the 401. Rail along the 401, right? So capitalists are just going to buy up all this land, right? They're just going to buy up all this land, just get in the way, charge exorbitant prices to the government. And of course, because it's the liberals and they're all hand-wringing liberals, right? Who actually think they have to negotiate with these capitalists, like they will, and that'll slow everything down. And then a new government will come in and then reassess and then all this kind of stuff. So none of that shit's going to happen. Because our system can't build infrastructure. And it refuses to build infrastructure. Because it doesn't benefit the wealthy, right? They don't get, like, they don't care, right? They want everything to be individualized with their individualism. And they're thinking to themselves, well, I'll just take my private jet from Toronto to Montreal. Why do I care about this high-speed rail? Who cares about these peasants? Like, that's what the narrative actually is. So it's not going to happen. Yeah, Canadian Castro, where are you? There were hundreds of tribes, some aggressive. Yeah, it's manufactured scarcity. Why the economy is how it is. Let the market decide chaos. Yeah. Wow, you guys are really, really having good back and forth here. Rather than land back, we need to strive to dissolve boundaries between people rather than emphasize them. I mean, good luck with that. There's a lot of like, I get where you're coming from, dude. I really do. But like, good luck with that. Like, that's like on the same line as the people who say we should abolish money. It's like, good luck with that. Like, I think that people will not go along with you on that. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing between Kate and Lofear. I just think you guys are kind of talking past each other, as can happen in text discussions. All right. What a wonderful chat you guys have been having in here. This has been really lively. I'm going to read this one. I'm going to read this one aloud, as I do. As you guys continue in the chat. How Canada became a vaccine villain. Pharma lobbying nearly doubled before a Liberal government moved to blocked TRIPS waiver. Until recently, nobody could accuse Justin Trudeau of being Big Pharma's BFF. In fact, the pharmaceutical industry used to have an adversarial relationship with the Liberals, thanks to Trudeau's suggestion that domestic drug prices might be too high and should therefore be regulated. The mood between government and industry was seen as hostile by the media. Pharma lobbyists publicly complained that Liberal ministers' engagement with them had been cursory. The pandemic changed everything. Relations between Big Pharma and the Trudeau government have warmed considerably over the past year. An analysis of lobbying records by the Briest shows, with lobbying meetings jumping 80%. One casualty of this budding friendship has been Trudeau's universal pharmacare agenda, which the Liberals appear to have abandoned. But Big Pharma's sway over policy reaches far beyond domestic matters. Trudeau's political capitulation extends all the way to Geneva, where Canada's trade representatives at the World Trade Organization have for over a year blocked progress on a proposal to temporarily lift patents on vaccines and other essential medicines. Contracts the Liberal government has signed with companies have initially banned Canada from donating surplus doses to lower-income countries. I'm going to say that one again, so that real sinks in. Contracts the Liberal government has signed with companies even initially banned Canada from donating surplus doses to lower-income countries. The pandemic has produced an unprecedented windfall for Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca. The major vaccine producers who possess a product everyone needs and, with few exceptions, only they can produce. Pfizer and Moderna in particularly have posted astronomical profits and minted several new billionaires among their executives and shareholders. With the partial exception of AstraZeneca, they have shunned multilateral channels established to ensure a fair global distribution of vaccines and concentrated instead on inking secretive bilateral deals. Countries willing to pay top dollar go to the front of the line, leaving the rest of the world waiting for handouts. The result of this laissez-faire approach has been distribution so lopsided that the head of the World Health Organization has denounced it as vaccine apartheid. Lower-income countries remain stuck at square one, waiting for vaccine donations that never arrive. Canada, a particularly poor performer in this regard, having delivered only 8% of the 200 million doses it pledged to give. The People's Vaccine Alliance reports that 73% of all vaccine doses have gone to just 10 countries, while less than 6% of Africans have been vaccinated. Vaccine inequality is so extreme that the number of booster shots administered by wealthy countries surpasses six-fold the number of total doses given in low-income countries. COVAX, the institution that was to ensure equitable access to vaccine doses for poorer countries, has been an utter failure. This is a moral indictment of the state of our world, said UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in a speech in September. It is an obscenity. We passed the science test, but we're getting an F in ethics. As Omicron, a new COVID-19 variant of concern, wreaks its havoc, it has brought the dramatic global inequality in access to vaccines and the power held by a handful of pharmaceutical corporations back into focus. The immediate signs on Canada's part are not good. The federal government has banned flights from Southern Africa, but not from Europe, where some countries have more cases of Omicron than those on the banned list. And despite growing momentum for countries to lift vaccine patents at the WTO, Trudeau's government appears to still be unmoved. Sensing early on that the global south would be locked out, India and South Africa approached the WTO in October 2020 with a proposal to facilitate cheaper, generic production of vaccines, therapeutics, and other medical products needed to fight COVID-19. Their proposal, by suspending the WTO's agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, on these urgently needed items, other pharmaceutical companies could increase the supply of vaccines and bring down the prices. Over 120 countries have rallied behind the TRIPS waiver proposal, but not Canada. And yet, in the first months of the pandemic, Canada's stance on vaccine equity was supposedly crystal clear. The quest for a vaccine, if successful, would produce a unique global public good of the 21st century, Trudeau declared in May 2020, in a statement co-signed with European leaders. Together with our partners, we commit to making it available, accessible, and affordable to all. 2 months later, Trudeau reiterated this stance in a Washington Post op-ed signed by 8 other world leaders. We cannot allow access to vaccines to increase inequalities with or between countries, whether low, middle, or high income, while global cooperation in terms of resources, expertise, and experiences is paramount for developing a vaccine, manufacturing, and distributing it, while leaving no one behind will truly put global cooperation to the test. But in response to the call for a TRIPS waiver, Big Pharma's leading vaccine producers spearheaded a continent-spanning political counteroffensive in the form of lobbying and public relations. Despite receiving billions of dollars in public money at the development stage in the form of subsidies and advance purchase agreements from the US and EU, Big Pharma regarded the vaccines as their exclusive intellectual property, and they intended to keep it that way. Here in Canada, the local representatives of Big Pharma made it clear that the TRIPS waiver was a red line that the Trudeau government should not cross. The industry's official voice in Ottawa, Innovative Medicines Canada, which represents Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca, warned that temporarily suspending patents at the WTO would be a disappointing step that will create greater uncertainty and unpredictability for the future supply of vaccines. As occurred in other countries, Big Pharma stepped up its lobbying of the Canadian government significantly just as the TRIPS waiver idea emerged. Over the next year, lobbyists hired by Big Pharma's vaccine producers contacted politicians and high-ranking civil servants a total of 181 times, or an average of 3 to 4 lobbying visits every week. We do not believe that waiving intellectual property rights is an easy answer to the capacity challenges we face, Cole Pinow, CEO of Pfizer Canada, told a parliamentary committee in March 2021. Innovative Medicines Canada lobbied elected representatives and government officials 55 times in the past year. Lobbyists for the US-based pharmaceutical giants Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson paid designated office holders in Canada a combined 116 visits since October 2020. This is just like a big fucking laundry list of just like, Jesus H. Christ. Jesus H. Christ. Like we're gonna get wiped, we're gonna get sideswiped by this Omicron thing, then another one's gonna show up and another one and another one. It's just a fucking disaster. You guys are having a great conversation here. She said specifically the U.S. and NATO were already splitting apart war, so now we're talking about remote tribes. I don't get it. Bo, the fifth column here on YouTube, had a well-informed opinion. Definitely 2 separate subjects responding to your message about Indigenous people being alive and well. Yeah, Venezuela paid COVAX for COVID vaccines, and the U.S. took the money from the bank performing the transaction, and the vaccines were not delivered. Of course. Of course. That's all the way, man. That's all the way. How about we fight back by forcing Canada to donate 1 out of 2 doses before starting booster shots for Canadians? I mean, for God's sakes, like, we have to. Yeah. The vaccines are useless. My country is filled with cases with the new variant. We have 90% vaccination. Yeah. And that's the way it's going to go. Like, the only way we can stamp this out is together, right? With one big push to vaccinate the entire globe. It reminds me of that game. You guys ever play Plague Inc? You ever hear about this game? Plague Inc. There's this great game, and it is a good game. Plague Inc, right? Where you play as the plague, right? You play as the virus.
I find it hard to picture that word.
And you're mutating around the globe, right? And you're like going around the globe, and to win the game, you wipe out all of humanity, right? And you do this by but one of the game's critical failures, you fail if the humans create a vaccine, right? So the game developers simply didn't even understand how it was going to look. That humanity was going to create vaccines and then withhold them from each other. Did you see the Freeland post in Canada Left? Pretty accurate, not going to lie. I don't think I saw it. But, like, Christian Freeland is a Nazi collaborator. Like, I mean, it's brutal. Most of my family are healthcare workers. Been brutal, yeah. Busy in here tonight onward, you bet. Lots of new people. Glad to see y'all. Lots of people with big questions. Glad to see all of you. Good opportunity to say like, share, subscribe. Right? Hit the bells, hit the whistles. Give me some money. Give me money. I used to get really upset that I had to do that, but now it's like the real world is playing. Oh, Vosh is awful. Don't pay attention to Vosh. Don't. Like, Vosh has some extremely pedophilic, very scary views, if you ask me. That really discredit you. Jack Skipper, good to see you, bud. The real world is playing Plague Inc. on easy mode, yeah. Well, or we're just in the beginning stages of it, dude, where the plague has, like, shown itself, and we're, like, creating vaccines, but we're not sharing the vaccines. Ugh. Yes, it hasn't snowed yet in Denver, but it's Colorado's meager snowpack that should worry you. Like, climate change, we're gonna get fucked by climate change. Once everyone has the virus, you make the virus deadly. Could that happen with COVID-19? Yeah. That's what's gonna happen. Like, it's just gonna keep ramping up. It's just gonna keep going up. It's just gonna keep getting worse. Right? Like, that's pretty clearly what's going on. Right? Like, a variant is going to come through and it's going to sweep through and it's going to actually be really fucking deadly. Because we're dicking around with it. Right? It's going to completely sidestep our vaccines and it's going to be brutal. Right? You wait until it starts going after our kids. Like, the failures of neoliberal capitalism are overt and obvious and right in front of our faces. Like, you really, really, really got to try to miss it. You really got to try to miss it. And I really think that what's going on is that people are unwilling to state what is obviously right in front of their faces. And, like, the experts are not. That they're dicking around. Like, there is going to be a variant. Like, what has happened with Omicron? What's happened with Omicron? You had a variant come out of South Africa, one of the regions that everybody said, yeah, it's a hotspot. Like, this is where it's going to happen, and it came out of there, and it's going to sidestep our vaccine, and it's going to sweep on through, right? And that's just going to keep happening. Like, the thing we said would happen happened. And it's going to keep happening. And there's no reason why it shouldn't happen that way. And it's going to keep sweeping through. And the pharmaceutical companies actually have no reason to want to cure this thing. They don't want to eliminate it. This is how they're making their money, right? This is their profit motive. They have every incentive to keep this thing alive. They have every incentive to keep this thing going. They're not interested in curing this thing. They're not interested in killing it. They don't worship human life. They don't worship reality or the environment. They worship money. They worship money. That's what they care about. And it's going to create a variant that is going to be extremely deadly, which in my view, given how much we're dickering around with this, is an inevitability. And it's going to sweep through and it's going to cause a lot of damage. Just now from the BBC, Pfizer boss, annual COVID jabs for years to come. Finally, the quiet part out loud. You were called a conspiracy theorist if you said it literally last week. Yeah. No, but I mean, like, it's obvious what they're doing, right? It's obvious what they're doing. And, like, what's crazed about it and what makes it a hysteria, right? What makes it a hysteria is that even the people who are doing it and getting money are the ones that are going to pay for it, right? Like, the virus doesn't, like, it's not going to care. It's not going to give a shit that you have $1 billion, right? All of the world leaders got COVID. Everybody got COVID, right? Here's my position, Kate. I don't care what our leaders say. I don't care what the corporations say. I don't care what the institutions say. I do care what the doctors and nurses have to say. That's who I listen to. I listen to doctors and I listen to nurses, and if the doctors and the nurses say get the thing, I get it. I don't care what Justin Trudeau or Aaron O'Toole or Jagmeet Singh say. I don't care what the President of the United States says. I don't care what Pfizer, Moderna, any of these guys say. I don't care what the World Health Organization says. I care what the nurses and the doctors are saying. And if the nurses and the doctors are saying get it, then get it. And if they're saying don't, then don't. Because they're the ones that are dealing with it. They're the ones on the front line. And I don't see why anyone's expertise should supersede theirs. Yeah, don't follow Jimmy Dore into that madness. Jimmy Dore is going into that madness, dude. It's sort of crazy to watch. It's sort of crazy to watch what Jimmy Dore is up to. Yeah, mainstream said 1 dose, then 2 doses, then booster, and then all this. Yeah. Yeah, listen to your doctors. Just listen to your doctors. You can still question how this is being handled and shouldn't be taken from some backwoods anti-vax baba. I agree with that too. I think that what's deeply unfortunate about what's going on in this conversation is that if you have questions or if you're skeptical at all, you get dumped into this like category. You know, and I just don't think that that's going to be helpful moving forward. I think it's completely acceptable to have questions and expect those questions to be answered. And of course, we should be skeptical of these corporations. All they've ever done is lie to us. What makes you think they're telling the truth now? Right? What makes you think they're telling the truth now? Because, like, cases are going up here in Ontario. We're almost cresting 1,000, right? We're just under. Oh, don't even worry about it, Chris, bud. I'm just happy people are here, honestly. You know what? I'm going to play one of my tunes. We're going to take a music break. We're doing the music break really, really late. But I've got so many new people in the chat that they've got to hear. Here's something that you didn't know was going to happen. You're going to get a song. What do you think? Yeah, let's do that one. So I call this one 2020. Whoa! chains don't get me very far. The chains that hold me break me down, but they don't scar. Can't even drink away my blues inside a bar, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? Another day won't help that pain inside your back. The days get harder, but it's too hard to keep track. They keep you tired before your soul opens a crack. And God don't care what monkeys think about the facts. And this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up? And this year sucks. So sit atop your pile of bones and bloody gold, and human sacrifice don't stop you being old. At least you'll die before the bomb you said explodes. We're gonna burn to death while doing what we're told, and this year sucks. This year sucks. Can you blame a man for trying to give it up, and this year sucks? It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. It burns down anyway. Yeah. I love that fucking song. I love that fucking song. Song kicks ass. Song kicks ass. Ugh. The guy who sings Graveyard and Oldie. Novak's protein based. Yeah. This decade sucks, dude. Yeah, the 2020s can get fucked. For sure. For sure they can get fucked. Pity those born after the 90s. Yeah, man, like, at least people who were born in the 80s got, like, there was, like, a little moment of, like, kind of like a good times were happening. This shit's brutal. This shit's brutal. Yeah, every so often you get numb to living in generally dystopian times. And then a new wave of the global pandemic hits. A school shooter kills his classmates with a gun his dad bought on Black Friday. And a theocratic court moves to throw out reproductive rights. All on the same day. America, get fucked. Yeah. Journal found his parents face scrutiny in Michigan school shooting. Today's video was just about that, man. Like, we're just so numb to this shit. We're just so numb to this shit. We're just eating it. We're just eating it. And we don't seem able to stop it. The dumbing down of America is most evident in the slow decay of substantive content in the enormously influential media. Lowest common denominator programming, credulous presentations on pseudoscience and superstition, but especially a kind of celebration of ignorance. Carl Sagan. Rest in peace, Carl. Rest in peace. Oh yeah. Witness going under the pseudonym Jane testifies at Ghislaine Maxwell's trial that Jeffrey Epstein drove her to Mar-a-Lago to meet Donald Trump when she was just 14 years old. This is a testimony. Per reporting from Classfield's reports, Epstein drove Jane to Mar-a-Lago in a dark green car. Questioning pivot away from the subject after she revealed this information. You don't take your 14-year-old victim to meet someone unless they are well aware of what you're doing and involved themselves. And just wait, it's only a matter of time before all of Epstein's surveillance tapes are found or leaked. It's going to get much worse. He was powerful for a reason. Blackmail. Barr was sure the search warrants got all those, and they will be undoubtedly never be found. Remember, Barr's family was also mixed up with Epstein. A lot to cover up. A lot of motive for suiciding Epstein, especially when he was trying to cut a deal to turn state's evidence. Trump is a child-raping evil bastard. The article talks about orgies they had with 14-year-old girls. The projection of the right and QAnon is insane. Republicans are the actual rapists running child sex slave rings. This brings the fact that that statement is a bit much. Clinton was also involved in this. So it's like both of them are doing it. This brings the fact that Epstein was suicided with the cameras shut off in a more glaring light. The Qs are having a bad day over this. They had thought, why? Because they're deluded that this trial would bring down the cabal of Democratic pedos. But since there aren't any, Bill Clinton. Fucking Bill Clinton. I don't know why these guys are saying there aren't any. Fucking Bill Clinton was on those flights. It's going to hurt their king of kings. Oh, I'm sure there are some Dems in there fucking Bill Clinton. I'm just glad Trump was outed. The difference is we'll be happy if anyone involved is outed and goes to prison, regardless of party. The Republicans, on the other hand, are well protected. Yeah. This story, above all other stories, reveals the dark underbelly. Kate, sometimes YouTube just deletes stuff. I don't know why. I don't know the rhyme or the reason to it. So if you post something and it doesn't make it through, just give it another go. Maybe try to find what do you think maybe the hot word is. Try to break it up, put spaces between them and all that kind of stuff. All right, I'm gonna end today's stream with a more uplifting song. This is called Antarctica is Covered in Ice. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm grown? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point of feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet. death's sweet kiss comes to sweep me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice. Wouldn't that be nice when everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Antarctica is covered in ice. And I still believe that we can do it. I still believe that we can do it. That we have pit ourselves in a war against the earth itself, and it is a war that we cannot win. And we keep saying, well, what can we do? What transition can we make? What technology can we create? And all of that is meaningless because the earth itself is the solution to the problem. This place was a garden before we got here. It was the perfect ideal conditions to create and sustain us. The lives that we have. It wants to be a garden. That we don't need to do anything at all. That if we just stood back, we would watch the miracle of the earth healing itself. And if we want to be here to see that miracle occur, all we have to do is stop. And Nanya, I would like to suggest a change in our language. It's not about waking people up. I think that the woke narrative has destroyed the wake them up line. I prefer to say that we need to snap out of it. That we need to snap out of it. That this is a mass hysteria. We are caught in a mass hysteria. And we have to snap out of it. Come to our senses. And I believe that we can. I believe that we can. Today was a really beautiful day. I'm so grateful that each and every one of you are here. So many new people here, so many curious people, so many people with questions, so many people with their own desire to And I can see your passions. I can see how much you want to be heard. I can see how much you want to change the world. And you can. And you can. You can change the world. That we are all far-flung throughout North America and Europe. We are our own independent people coming together here to find solidarity with one another. And I would like to encourage each and every one of you to begin organizing where you stand, where you live. Find your neighbors. Say hello to your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors. Begin organizing with the communities with the people who also want to organize. And if they don't exist, then it's you. Print a flyer. Create a flyer. Distribute the flyer. And then go to the event and have a protest. And when no one comes to your protest, you come back here and we'll cry about it together. We have to begin revolting. We have to revolt. We have to rebel. We have to repent. We have to. We don't have any alternative. The power structure has ensured that we do not have any alternative. And while you are doing all of that, never forget each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars to ensure that you don't realize it. Because if you do, then it means that you understand that you are their equal. And they can't have that while they try to enslave you. Don't let them. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.